In a grand hall, Sasha rushes up and hugs Heiss, grinning like she just won the world. I did it, my blessing is sword master. She practically squeals how amazing it is, urges Heiss to turn next, and swears that the moment he gets his blessing, they'll tear into adventures together. He nods, a surge of hope hitting him as he realizes this move is a giant leap toward their dreams. And then the scene rips back to a cruel, rain-soaked day from the past, where younger Heiss and Sasha huddle under the downpour in front of two graves, and Sasha's voice trembles as she whispers to her gone parents. That memory claws at him, because this tear-filled Heiss doesn't just steal, it sparks a vow. He declares they'll forge the strongest of all, so they can save everyone and make sure nobody else gets crushed by the same fate that broke them. Back in the present, an elderly official beckons Heiss over and hands him his moment, then explains the rule of this world. Every 12-year-old gets a blessing, a one-of-a-kind power pulled straight from sacred text. Heiss rushes to the giant skill encyclopedia, praying the answers are hiding somewhere in those pages. He slaps his hand on the book, and bam, a blinding flash detonates in the room. The pages whip around at impossible speed, then freeze dead still on one entry that appears right in front of him. Weapon Master ****. He just stands there, completely baffled, trying to figure out what the hell it even means. The glow dies out and the official Jace blurts out the one question. So what new skill did you get? When Heiss says, Weapon Master, Jace just stares, he's never even heard of it. Then Sasha steps in, just as confused, and points out the brutal problem. Since Heiss can't use any energy, how could this blessing possibly work? Her expression hardens with worry. 2 years later, the story slams into a brutal mountain trail where an older Heist, now called the Sacred Heist, groans under Porter's backpack, huffing and puffing as he trudges behind his adventuring partner. Reynolds, the party's scared vice leader, flips back with a relaxed grin, telling them to stop and catch their breath, saying they'll reach their destination any moment, while Heist stays hunched over, gasping like he can't quite pull air in. From across the street, Sasha keeps staring as Reynolds whips around to her and tells her they need to push forward right now. High finally speaks up with a tired sigh, begging them to take a short break. Sasha immediately nods and says they'll rest for half an hour before they push on again. She said nothing, then Reynolds snapped her name into the chaos, his voice slicing through the jeers aimed at Highs. Right there with him, Robin the woman, Tycoon the goggled kid, and Piazala the ill-feared healer, piled on too, laughing at Highs for crumpling under his heavy luggage and sneering that anyone without a blessing is just dead waste. She stayed quiet as Reynolds kept talking under his breath, warning that this slip-up might be the one thing that kills their chance to rank up. And even though her face didn't move, her eyes sharpened at what it meant. Before Robin could answer, Highs hauled himself upright, flashed Robin a weird little smile, and insisted the only way he could help the party was by carrying the bags. Then he thanked her and told her to rest, but his forced cheer left Robin frozen for a second. From a distance he watched the others, and that old frustration flared right back up in his chest. 2 years had already slammed by since his blessing, and in all that time he and Sasha had built this party and grown like crazy. Still he couldn't shake it. His own blessing sat there dormant, doing nothing. Right then, Reynolds leaned in and grilled Sasha, calling out her leniency like she was letting it slide too easily. Their gap in progress got officially stamped. Sasha had already nailed the elite A-rank solo, and meanwhile their party, Sacred, was stuck at B-rank. Right before they moved on, the party's heavily armored tank planted a steady hand on High's shoulder and told him, "Stop spiraling, rest up." High mumbled his thanks, but inside he clenched his fist tight, sick with the truth. He still had no clue what his blessing meant, and all he felt like was a walking baggage carrier. Sasha shot a worried look over her shoulder, and Reynolds rolled up with his cider, saying Heist looked wiped out and asking how he was holding up. Then he snapped his eyes forward to the road ahead, confidence flooding his voice as he said, "We'll be fine." His confidence barely calmed her at all. Reynolds kept pushing, demanding to know if she'd finally made her choice, and with a heavy heart and a strained look, she admitted it quietly, knowing she had no other way. Her choice snapped everything into place. Now the party was staring straight into the serpent's den, facing that brutal gaping entrance head-on. The tension was so thick it felt like an Aya quest all its own. Reynolds called the shots and laid out the whole strategy. Sasha would charge first as the vanguard, Reynolds would lock down the entrance, Typhoon and Robin would back them up, and Piazzolla would hang back as the rear healer. The plan got spoken aloud. And right behind everyone, Heist just stood there, completely unassigned, like he was waiting for a job that never got announced. He stares as the party lines up to dive into the cavern, and his voice shakes. "Sasha, are you really telling me I'm just meant to wait here?" Reynolds snaps, fists clenched in pure frustration, barking that he stays put and brushing off the tense moment, while Sasha orders the group to lock into formation. Their whole game plan hinges on special gifts called blessings, and a sharp expert lays it out. One of them, Typhoon, lets you tap teleportation magic, so the blessed can conjure a specific technique that's the key piece they need. Reynolds breaks it down. Philip's true blessing is Sage. and it lets him pull off support magic in tons of ways, not just healing. And with the group staring at the glowing den entrance, Reynolds snaps the final order: advance. Their charge gets slammed to a stop the moment a monstrous queen cobra rears up. This massive serpent shoots forward in a blur, its fangs crashing into the cavern floor like a hammer, and Sasha barely has time to hurl herself out of the way. Instead of cowering defensively, she snaps her hand forward with pure intent, setting up a ruthless counterattack. She snaps her blade up at the beast, jaw set, swearing it will drop dead right there, right now. From the entrance, Heistwatch freezes, stunned by how her already incredible swordplay is suddenly pushed to a whole new level by her blessing, because her ultimate technique is the perfect marriage of her skill and her enchanted sword. The fight explodes into motion. Sasha rockets through the air, sword raised high like a cannon, ready to slam down with a brutal strike. That magic she channels through her gear isn't luck, it's the Sage-class blessing, and she's mastered it completely. The serpent strikes back with brutal force, smashing its tail through the party's main shield until it shatters. Reynolds gasps and yells in panic, and right beside him, Piazzala just scoffs, grumbling that the so-called Sage let the monster slip past their defenses with. With their main defense crushed, Reynolds' confidence instantly detonates into pure panic. "I'm done for, Heist," he screams, because now the rest of the party is getting mobbed by smaller serpents, and every exit is closing fast as they get trapped. His gaze locked onto his comrade's desperate fight, and he doesn't feel the threat creeping up behind him. Then a massive serpent bursts from the shadows, its eyes burning with pure malice. He spins at the last second, and shock slams into his face as he finally sees the attack coming. As the serpent lunged, his mind snapped back to an earlier quest. He remembered apologizing to the party after a brutal fight, scrambling to explain that he wanted to contribute better, not just survive. His hard work still only got him nailed with a vicious rebuke from Sasha, who snapped that he needed to stop acting like a useless clown. While the rest of the party argued over how to collect the spoils, he stood alone, surrounded by the wreckage of their fight. He just stood there, totally baffled, while the others huddled and whispered. Piazzolla pressed for the missing materials, but Sasha waved it off and said the Serpent Queen's core was all the proof they needed to finish the quest. With Piazzolla glaring impatiently at every move, his fingers brushed a thick, unlabeled tome. Then panic hit as he jammed it into his bag fast, praying she wouldn't spot it in time. After everyone left him alone, he cracked open the book and stared hard. There were diagrams of a weird weapon, the Desert Eagle, and strange characters he'd never seen before. A creepy, familiar chill hit him, the exact kind of feeling he'd gotten the day he first received his blessing. He tried to show everyone his discovery when the party finally reconvened, but they were already packing to bolt. Reynolds shouted his name, and High snapped his eyes up from the book, hope blazing, as the whole crew surged toward his table. The moment Hope dared to rise, it got smashed. Before he even opened his mouth, Sasha dropped a brutally final verdict. "You should leave this party." Those words crushed him like a sledgehammer, and disbelief stole the air from his lungs. Then he grabbed at Sasha, begging her, "Did you really forget the promise we swore to each other?" She turned away, eyes sharpening, and even though a part of her knew she hadn't forgotten, the moment the party was about to hit air rank, she shoved the truth aside, telling herself he was nothing but a birdie. With one last move, she slammed a pouch onto the table, his severance, and told him she'd been chasing one dream, to join the strongest party. But now, she admitted she wasn't fit for it anymore. Reynolds tossed a tiny pouch of coins onto a nearby barrel, slapped on a dismissive apology, and handed him a little money for the trip home, leaving him frozen in stunned disbelief. The vice leader leaned in, slapped a hand onto his high shoulder with a smug grin, and swore he'd make the party's fame roar all the way back to his far-off hometown. He straight up said it with zero wiggle room. There was no longer any place for heists in their ranks. He steadied his voice, then glanced past Reynolds at the others, wondering if he'd really been waiting for this exact second, only for Reynolds to look totally stunned by the accusation. Before anyone could even speak, Philip exploded, roaring that Heist's expulsion was a mistake. He swore Heist had a rare blessing that might one day make him a master. The tankiest armored guy shot back that as the party climbed higher, their expectations had to rise too. And through it all, Sasha stayed locked in place, utterly still, saying nothing. Phillips kept on protesting, grilling Reynolds' judgment and demanding answers, while Reynolds dug in and stood his ground, refusing to back down on what would happen to the Heist. Reynolds shrugged off the outburst like it was noise, snapped his icy stare back on the Heist guy, and through fake manners, told him to please get out of the party. He dropped the money pouch on the table, calling it a sweet little token of their goodwill, but right behind him, the Heist quietly shot it down, saying he didn't want or need it. Suddenly, Heist's calm no snapped into full-blown fury. He wheeled around, slapped the pouch flying, and yelled that he didn't need their money at all. Then he clutched his fist, roared that he was leaving right now, and swore he'd never give up. With fire in his eyes, he spat out his final, bitter vow, he would never fold like Sasha. His furious accusation that she'd used her teammates to claw her way to her goals hit Sasha like a punch, eyes wide, stunned, with his words still ringing in the sudden quiet. With her eyes locked in blank silence, Reynolds stepped forward and spoke her name with calm confidence, while in the background, Highs kept roaring out his vow to never give up. He dropped to one knee in front of the quiet girl, asking if this was really her call, telling her it was okay, and pushing one thing above all. She just had to make sure Heist was the one who died. Sasha kept her eyes on the ground, saying it was nothing, and apologizing for forcing him to deal with it. Later that night, beneath a crescent moon, Reynolds leaned in and told her it didn't matter if she hated him for what he'd done, while Sasha just breathed out his name, nothing else. 2 months tore by, and now he was finally alone. Then the Heist itself let out a tired, defeated sigh. He strode through a roaring hall with a huge basket strapped to his back when an adventurer at a nearby table snapped his attention to him, pointed him out, and boasted that he'd just wiped out 30 goblins, so he'd have to push himself even harder now. You ignore it, but those whispers keep dogging you, because other adventurers are busy gossiping about the kid from the sacred party they booted out, laughing at him for picking flowers now and wandering off alone. Their cruel words hit him like a slap, and his face hardened as he clenched his fist. Sure, maybe the brat only ruined the party's name, or maybe his teammates had never really liked him in the first place. On a creaky wooden pier, 2 sets of footsteps matched step for step, ornate armored boots landing with a crisp, confident thud, while plain leather shoes answer softer behind them. Their synchronized steps crash to a stop as Sasha shoots up a hand and halts Heiss. He whips around, stunned, while Reynolds, Piazzolla, and Robin stare from a few paces away, and Sasha calls out his name with a voice that means business. He stares back, and the moment she fires off that order, shock hits him hard. She tells him to head south to the Desara Kingdom and track down the Damplands, where he'll find those rare white medicinal herbs to make recovery potions. The request lingers like a threat in the air. He questions the task she's allowed, then fixates on the insane pile of herbs she just rattled off. While he's still trying to make sense of the order, the rest of the party is already peeling off to leave. Sasha just gives him a quick, simple goodbye and strides away. Reynolds shoots Sasha a smirk and asks if Heiss will really go find those herbs for them. And when Heiss turns to leave, it clicks in his head. Those white herbs have to be pricey as hell for the party to need cash, so yeah, he's been sent on an errand. As she turns to leave, a soft, knowing smile blooms on Sasha's lips, and she's sure he'll pull it off. Her silent confidence slams into him, and he clenches the paper tight, taking her instructions like a lifeline. Sure, the destination is miles away, but his resolve doesn't budge. He's going. By the next day, his journey slams him into damp, eerie lands. He tops a hill and freezes, breath snagging hard in his throat. Ahead stretches an endless sea of spotless white flowers, and the sight hits him so fast he can't even speak. Feeling strangely drawn in, he strides into the sea of blossoms and starts his job, carefully plucking herbs and dropping them into a basket, while quietly admitting to himself that the rest of the party isn't with him. Left to take on the job solo, he still feels warm gratitude crawl up his chest. Then he lifts his head and smiles for real, telling himself he has to thank them, because maybe one day their shared dreams will finally turn into reality. He whips his head over his shoulder, and a sudden shadow slams across the sea of white herbs, making the whole field feel wrong. Then he blurts out, "What in the world is throwing that kind of shadow so fast?" His eyes blow wide with pure terror, and right over him looms a monstrous bipedal dragon, slick, jagged dark scales everywhere, plus razor-sharp claws ready to strike. Frozen to the spot, he can only stare up in stunned disbelief at the colossal beast looming in front of him in that calm, quiet field. The creature blasts out a thunderous roar, panic detonates as he spots it. The dense jungle of herbs gives him no real escape route, and his legs start shaking like crazy. He screams like his lungs are burning as the dragon rockets toward him, its massive body swallowing the sky itself. The attack blasts him like a cannonball, and he rockets through the air, then smacks into the rocky ground, knocking a sharp, painful gasp straight out of his lungs. From a high perch, Reynolds watches it all with a stone-cold face, wondering why Sasha would have sent Heist to this exact spot, then deciding the kid is nothing but a nuisance to the party. Battered and bleeding, the Heist hits him with one cruel memory. Sasha's smiling face flashes in his mind, then despair crashes down as he lies there before the beast, wondering if he even has the right to keep breathing. The dragon snarls, winding up for the final blow, then a spark of defiance erupts in his chest. He clenches his teeth and swears to himself, "Not here, not like this. This is not how my life ends." His resolve hardens, he refuses to die. A strange, burning light flares in his eye, and then boom, blinding flash erupts from his outstretched hand. Light tightens in his hands, sparking into a weird metallic weapon, an M79 grenade launcher, and a primal rush hits him, locking in the sudden, terrifying truth that he can actually wield it. The dragon rips the sky apart with a deafening roar as it charges. Then his brand new instinct locks in, telling him exactly what to do. Squeeze the trigger and blast the explosive payload. With fresh resolve roaring in his chest, he hoists that heavy weapon, locks his sights, and one clear thought slices through the fear. I can do this. When the beast throws itself at him, everything goes wide. He yanks the trigger, and one blazing shot rockets straight into the dragon's throat. A brutal explosion detonates from inside the dragon, ripping its head apart from the inside out, and blasting a shockwave that slams Heist backward. After the dust settles, the weapon in his grip starts to crumble into glowing particles, like it's being erased mid-battle. He snaps his eyes to the weapon master book, dread spreading across his face as he realizes he might have just unleashed what the pages called a blessing, a power that doesn't belong in this world. The adrenaline finally dies, and the truth slams into him. He's alive. He drops to his knees, shaking, sobbing from pure relief and gut-punch terror, and then his crying snaps into a frantic, totally unhinged laugh. In his fractured haze, a memory snaps into focus. Sasha's face, all sweetness, as she condemned him and spat the word, wretch. Then the memory slices through the chaos and leaves only a cold, scorching rage. He grabs his face, eyes blazing with the pain of betrayal, and swears, "I'll never forget me." Meanwhile, at the guild hall, Guild Mastergeist watches from his office window, and when Reynolds and Piazzolla earn their A-rank promotion, he wastes no time. He hands out a sharp congratulations. Down in the courtyard, Reynolds bows back with his thanks, and his whole party stands behind him like a proud wall of champions. He takes a sip of his drink and throws out a casual question about Highs, saying he's been hearing disturbing rumors about the kid lately, while Piazzolla, right beside Sasha, shoots back at his sudden curiosity. Then he lays it all out. Those rumors aren't just cruel. They say they ditched the boy and even planned to hurt him, and now the whole story paints them as nothing but phony adventurers. Piazzolla's eyes widen as he blurts, asking if he really thinks they'd sink that low. Then the guildmaster just keeps sipping, like he already knows, saying it's only what the whispers say. Then he leans in, voice sharpening as he tells them. As their sacred party's fame swells, the scrutiny and gossip will explode right along with it, so he's basically admitting he gets exactly why they want that boy gone. When Sasha shoots him that questioning look, he leans in and explains, because the kid's still chasing the dream they all once talked about, building a life for himself, and even reminding them that Heiss had already marked out some great spots to hunt medicinal herbs. He pauses mid-sip, then leans in and demands they remember, pointing them straight to the direction of the Desara Desert. Suddenly, his cool mask fractures. He slams his cup onto the table with a thunderous crash, then roars that they're messing with him, flat out calling out the wetlands. His accusation cuts through the silence as he drops a terrifying truth. The wetlands of the habitat hide an SS-rank black dragon. Sasha's stomach sinks as she realizes they just sent Heist straight to his certain death, right before the full weight of it lands. Then a guild staffer bursts in, shouting for the guild master with urgent news. He barrels into action, responding to the emergency, then snaps that Sasha and her whole party come running to the main hall, right now. She obeys instantly, but pure apprehension tightens her expression. Downstairs, the guild hall is in full-blown chaos. Then from a balcony, the sacred party crashes in with pure utter shock. Right in the eye of the frenzy stands Heiss, gripping the massive, severed head of the black dragon, eyes locked forward with no give. His eyes flare with fury as they lock onto his former comrades. Then he fires back with a direct, cutting question. Did their hatred for him really go that far, to the point they meant to hurt him? He presses harder, revealing he's heard these same threats before, and that's exactly how he knew his suspicions were right. Sasha stares at his outburst baffled and asks what he means, but he bulldozes right over her, calling her confusion a fake. Then he lunges toward the monstrous dragon head, roaring at them to look, like it's proof of the cruel fate they'd planned for him. Bitterly, he remembers a time when he'd actually been happy, convinced their kindness was real. His voice blasts out in a raw shout. He's had enough, and the betrayal hurls him past the breaking point. With fierce, unshaking eyes, he swears in silence that he'll become the strongest of them all. Before he can even act on his vow, a sudden, brutal impact jolts the air, sending a nearby guild member tumbling to the floor. Then the blow lands on Heist, knocking him down hard onto the wooden planks stacked beneath him. Sasha freezes, staring straight at his fallen form, shock flooding her face as she breaks, crying out his name. 2 years later, Heist stands in a rustic shop, slams coins on the counter and tells the proprietor, "I'll be staying for a whole month." With an S-rank badge shining, the old man behind the counter tells Heist to ditch this rundown spot and move to somewhere respectable. Eyes glassy, he's fighting back tears, but Heist wipes that advice away and just asks for breakfast to be included. He can't shake the thought that nobody would ever guess an S-rank adventurer is actually staying right here, because the name everyone's whispered now is the official one. Highs, the harbinger of darkness. Elsewhere, Sasha flips through a newspaper and locks onto the headline. Brynhild Valkyrie just got promoted to S rank after all this time. Now she stares at the page, thinking about the fresh applications her party is about to get. With his mind already drifting off, he shot up the towering stairs from the doorway, eyes locked in a fierce, unstoppable focus. The guild master, himself an S-rank adventurer and the deadliest in unarmed combat, summoned Highs to the merchant's guild. So after he took a sip of his drink, Highs leaned in and demanded, "So why am I here?" Jace boasts that he heard Highs single-handedly crushed a S+ mithril ogre, then struts like he's the one who raised the kid, until Highs snaps back, asking when Jace ever became his teacher. These creature powers are judged by a strict ranking system, from the lowest F all the way up to the rarest SSS, but nobody has ever logged an official record of an SSS-level monster. He stands there staring down a mountain of harvested monster parts, while Heist listens as Geist says they could have squeezed out even more with cleaner processing. Then Heist mutters that his blessing can be a bit too intense. Just like that, the subject shifts. Geist shoves a wax-sealed envelope into Heist's hands, and when he says it's an invite to the S-rank ceremony, Heist freezes, baffled, because he thought he'd already gotten one. He stared at the Heist's letter, clocking the royal seal with every beat of his heart, and when the guildmaster snapped, "So the royal family S in on this too," Heist shot back, "No, this is from the royal family, not the guild." Heist snorted at how overblown it all sounded, then remembered. The first king literally invented the Adventurer King idea, and was the very first S-rank adventurer himself. The guild master laid out the stakes, because once the royal family recognized him as a real S-rank adventurer, everyone who carried the king's bloodline would be watching. If Heist wanted that full stamp of approval, he'd first have to crush the job they were about to hand him. As Jace took it all in, he slammed in the missing piece. Sasha was right there with him. Then the Heist's eyes shot opened an alarm, because it sensed she was waiting just behind. His expression snapped hard, and his armored fist clenched like it meant business. He spun back to Jay's, voice dropping low, demanding how on earth he could have forgotten what happened between them. Guys said calm as day that he'd warned Sasha about Heist again and again, and that memory hit Heist like poison. Sasha, ringed by her party, calling him nothing but dead weight. Then the guildmaster's voice sliced right through it, asking if Heist got kicked out for being weak or for some other reason. Either way, the truth stayed the same. He was expelled. His whole Heist vibe snapped into cold, numb acceptance. Then he shrugged and said he had no stake in it, just that the weak get pushed out, period, because that's the way you get stronger. As he talked, Sasha slipped quietly out of the room behind him. He met the guildmaster's gaze head-on, resolve blazing, and swore he'd never quit his quest to get stronger. That resolve burned hotter, fueled by raw bitterness, and the word comrades slammed into his mind. Then he quietly spat out contempt, muttering nonsense with his piece settled, Heist spun around and strode out of the office. Hard. The guy stayed put, sipping straight from his cup. Heist watched the young man vanish down the hall, and all he could think was this. Even with power in his hands, Heist was still just a kid. Months roll by, and inside the royal palace's grand halls, two figures are suddenly called up. An official steps forward and announces Adventurer Sasha and Adventurer Heist, both standing there with their heads bowed. From atop his throne, Barbaros, the 13th king of Highbelk, addresses them, declaring it all in the kingdom's name, and then slams down the truth. His word alone decides how their final S-rank promotion trials play out. From the sidelines, two young royals, Cress and Eugenie, watch everything unfold with wide, unblinking eyes. First, Prince Cress strides up to the front, declares the first task, and tells Sasha that the kingdom chose her to take down a crystal golem that just popped up in a nearby mine, then adds that he's going with her. Sasha nodded and called for attention like an honor was about to begin. Then the spotlight snapped to Nguyen, who sprinted up with a document and told Heist, "It's your turn now." His mission takes him east to Philia, deep inside the Gagasia sacred forest, land that belongs to the Adore Kingdom. Now it's clear she's first Princess Main. She lights up with a grin and declares she's coming with Heist on his quest. Heist jerks around, stunned speechless, just as he tries to protest. He flat out refuses, saying it's impossible for her to come with him. The princess freezes at his brutal rejection while the whole court stares. And for the first time, a dark eye patch snaps into view over Heist's right eye. Nguyen presses him hard to explain himself, insisting that with her watching over him, his odds on the S-rank mission would skyrocket. And then she snaps, asking if he's even counting his companions in the plan. Heist ignores her completely and turns straight to the king, declaring the mission is far too dangerous and that he'll handle it alone, then begs the king for forgiveness, while Sasha watches in silence, worry twisting across her face. King Barbaro doesn't take offense at his defiance. He explodes into a thunderous laugh, his whole body trembling with amusement, leaving the people nearby utterly. Once the laughter dies down, his eyes turn ice cold. He locks onto the young adventurer and tells him, This has never happened before, but the royal family's job is to witness how their people grow, even when they're pushing past the dangers adventurers face. He keeps talking, admitting he's heard a ton of wild legends about his high exploits. Then he lays it all out. He finishes every SRIN commission, and he always takes the fight solo. Before the king can even finish his sentence, Princess Muin blurts out, begging her father to listen. Then the king snaps her shut on the spot, swearing he'll make an exception just this once. The princess puffs her cheeks in pure frustration, huffs in realization that she can't go with him after all. With the drama finally cut and wrapped up, King Barbaros snaps his hands together, dead serious. Then he formally declares the crowd in ceremonial fashion to be. After the official ceremony wraps, the court shifts into a calmer mood, and servants start rolling in trays of food for simple, easy feasts. While they eat, King Barbaros lifts his goblet to strike at Master Jays with a drink, bursting into hearty laughter. Then he slaps praise on Heiss's fearless nerve, and Jays can only nod back with a tense, forced smile. Later, the king spots the men staring out a huge arched window at Heiss, standing alone in the courtyard below, and he finally admits he should have told the guild master sooner. But he also swears he never expected that kid to have this kind of courage. At the banquet tables inside, things get painfully awkward. Princess Mayan refuses to quit, keeps trying to hand Sasha food, and Reynolds, Philip, and Piazzolla just watch, stunned. She clasps her hands and begs Sasha to let her ride along on the mission party, and when Sasha's silent doubt hangs in the air, the princess steps forward. I'm Muhin, and swears she's not giving up. Reynolds protests, furious that a royal can't possibly be allowed to do something like this, while Piazzolla mutters under her breath, furious that their first trip together keeps getting yanked away, and Sasha just watches, looking a little stunned. Muin's face bursts into pure joy the moment she realizes her request got accepted, and she practically tumbles over herself thanking Sasha. Darling Sasha, calling it an honor. Meanwhile, Heist watches from the back like, wow, the princess is something else, while Prince Cress casually shrugs and tells her to just call him Cress. Later, the freshly bigger party pushes deeper into a sunlit, dappled forest. Then the whole story snaps focus onto him, a high-size figure burning with quiet, unshakable determination as he strides the road ahead. As night drops, he stands alone under a crescent moon, staring up at a sky packed with stars, then clenches his gloved fist, pure, silent resolve, right before his solitary trial kicks off. Just as he's lost in thought, that familiar voice snaps him back. Heist whips around and sees the guildmaster closing in, drink in hand, worry written all over his face. The guildmaster gives him a light scolding, snapping that turning down the royal escort was disrespect to the king, and that it landed his Jays in a whole heap of trouble, forcing him to just sheepishly laugh and apologize. Guy's soft voice returns as he ruffles the kid's Heist hair, telling him to stay polite, then slipping in a warning. He's only getting away with this because the king's generous. And right after that, he leans in and tells the boy that since he's going alone, nobody's coming to save him. His face went stone cold again. Then the guildmaster locked eyes with him and demanded, so what are you planning to do now? Heist stops cold and thinks, gripping the will of the sage he just received. But the ancient book in his hands still refuses to unlock its secrets, so he clenches harder, and determination turns into pure iron in his veins. Guildmaster Jays fires off one last warning, be careful. And just like that, the young adventurer spins to go, slipping away beneath the stingy glow of a crescent moon, while the guild hall looms behind him and that heavy gate slams shut with a brutal thud. His lone silhouette slips through the towering stone gates and disappears into the dark night. He barely gets going before a familiar voice snaps his name into the air like an alarm, and he skids to a stop. When he turns, Sasha is there in the archway, her face set and serious. She asks for just a moment to talk, but he instantly shuts her down, snarling that there's nothing left to discuss. So Sasha swallows her pride and offers a soft, sincere apology. He scoffs off her apology, snaps at her to quit the nonsense, then turns his back on her again. His composure finally cracks. He whips around, voice shredded with fury, and yells at her for acting so suddenly polite and sorry. Then he slams his hand toward the bandage over his left eye, roaring that she didn't care when his eye was gouged out, before snarling that after 2 long years she's just trying to wipe her conscience. As he storms off again, Sasha dashes after him, shouting his name, trying to drag up the flower-picking incident, only for her words to fade as she struggles to get it out. Her words instantly dragged my mind back to that commission we took on together. And yeah, that quest blew up in the worst way. He snaps her words in half, his voice dripping pure sarcasm, and then he goes for the jugular, demanding what she's even sorry for, accusing her and the others of never taking the blame at all. Sasha just freezes, mouth open, completely speechless. He stares at her with icy, hurt-filled eyes and declares she's totally soulless. Sasha freezes, shock ripping through her, and the moment his name slips from her lips, tears flood her eyes. He whips around and cuts her off in an instant, so sharp it shocks the air. Sasha gasps, then lunges forward, her hand grabbing at the empty spot where he was just standing. As rain starts hammering down around them, she grabs his hand, breathless and trembling, and spills a shaky apology, admitting she was terrified, and that in that moment she genuinely thought his leaving the party was the right call. Her face warms into a hopeful smile, eyes begging him to finally get it. She tells him she just wants him to understand, reminding him of that promise. Stay safe, and she'll turn their shared dreams into reality. Her plea just lights the fuse. Rage boils in his veins as he yanks his hand free and shuts her down, calling her words pure nonsense, and wondering if she's only making empty promises to herself. He declares that from now on he'll rise in his own way, forging his own path. When those bitter words hit her, Sasha's tear slips down her cheek and blends with the pounding rain. His voice climbs higher with pure resentment as he pushes on, grilling her about whatever noble excuse she used to toss him out, then declaring that her choice just bulldozed every dream they ever built together. Once his speech was done, he snapped at her to keep pushing, keep chasing that dream of becoming the strongest party. Then he sneered that even if he was strong, he'd never throw away someone weaker the way she just did. And as he strode off, Sasha just stood there, completely frozen, staring after him. He pauses one last time, back still to her, and shouts that his whole life is shattered, ruined beyond saving, and he won't need her for anything ever again. Then he storms away into the pounding downpour, leaving her alone in the city square. Among the world's rarest medicinal herbs sits one called Eternal Moon Fame. An open tome spells out its powers, while the plant itself is painted blooming softly under the full moon's glow. They say this herb is a ghost. Only it grows on the very top of Mount Gagasia, a savage peak buried deep inside the forests of the ignorant kingdom. In a quiet room, Heist sits up, checks his gear inch by inch, and really studies what he's got. His dragon-scale armor, just dragon-shed skin, his haplon ring, a magical item box with tight limits, and his grimoire only a few pages long. With his prep all set, he strides into the Merchant's Guild, and slams his S-rank adventurer card onto the reception counter for them to inspect. A guild staffer flashes him a grin and tells him Mastergeist is with Sasha right now, so he'll have to wait. He pivots toward the quest board, scanning for any high-rank requests for rare herbs, and tells her he's more than happy to wait. As he scrolls through the postings, a sharp female voice cuts in, "What's wrong?" He snaps his head up, and there stands an elf with pointed ears and a bow tucked in her hair. He snaps back that it's nothing, but the elf keeps staring at him like she doesn't buy a single word. The whole showdown kicks off right in front of the guild's roaring quest board, where bounty and request notices are pasted everywhere. She shatters the silence with one straight question, "So are elves rare?" And he turns to her and answers, plain and simple, that yeah, they're pretty much in short supply. He breaks it down, saying it's wild to see an elf stranded away from the Ghidorah region, and then he shows a map, highlighting just how far Highbulk sits from those lone Ghidorah forests, so you can feel it too. Her being here makes no sense. From a few steps away, he watched as another woman marched up to Pietzola, Persia, a B-ranked adventurer. She flashed her ID card, and Pietzola's eyes widened, because this was Persia's first time here, and it felt downright rare to run into someone else. He stepped in closer, and told Pietzola this was the first time he'd ever met someone like her, so powerful on her own. Then he got caught off guard when she fired the question back, demanding to know what his situation was. He didn't even argue, he just shoved his own adventure card in the frame, and Pietzola's eyes went wide when she saw that S-rank stamped on it. As they stood staring at the quest board, he admitted that an S-rank taking a mission solo was almost unheard of. Then Pietzola cut in, far more curious about what he picked, and warned him he was signing up for a commission in the Ghidorah forest. Hearing the name Idora hit him like a lightning strike, he lunged forward fast, snapping, low and sharp, that it wasn't her business, but his harsh grilling died mid-sentence when a guild staff member shouted that it was Heist's turn. Seeing he'd gone too far, he snapped back into control, declared he was out, and spun away from the stundel. Meanwhile, across the guild hall, Sasha called out to someone standing right nearby. She figured they'd come for the same reason. A quest the king himself commissioned, and they were headed straight to the guild master to talk about it. The guy she talked to was Heist. He blew right past her without a word, and his face gave away nothing as he kept moving. She watched him slip past, worry flashing across her face, while Pietzola stared at their brief, wordless moment from a few steps back. He barged into the guildmaster's office, and inside he found a squad of tough guys and a massive, power-packed man backing them up. The guildmaster zeroed in on Heist and said the SS-ranked dragon in the Gagasia region was finally stirring. Then he dropped the real bombshell. The Yggdrasil clan, one of the 4 great clans, was moving in the exact same area. He leaned in as the guildmaster's crew started laying out exactly what they were hunting. Turns out the clan Yggdrasil was packed with demi-humans, and their fearless leader was none other than the legendary hero. The guildmaster basically laughed at the idea that clan was the right word. This was a massive organization, packed with all those adventurer parties it guarded, and each one ran its own show, pocketing every reward straight from the quest, with the clan taking not a single cut. Once he wrapped up his explanation, the guys shoved a tiny, sealed object into his hands. Heist froze, staring at it like it might explode, his face screaming, "What is this?" He said it was an introduction letter for Heist to hand to the Yggdrasil Guild, and then Geist bragged that after 40 years in the business, his connections, especially with the leaders of the 4 great guilds, would be exactly what they needed. With a sharp flick of the letter, Heist declared his exit from that high window. Geist watched him fall away, biting back a worry like, "Don't you dare get hurt." He thundered through the city's towering stone gates, and with the bustling center fading behind him, he plunged into the wide-open road leading to the outskirts. A sudden flash lit up the darkness, and his eyes snapped to it. Then he drew that odd, pistol-like weapon with razor speed, the mechanism clicking as he barked, "Who's there?" He blasted a warning shot, an energy burst snapped out near the target he couldn't even see. Then he barked, "First warning, next time you'll blade." And right on cue, a tiny smiling creature popped up from the ground, already apologizing like it was the whole plan. From behind a tree, the elf archer slipped out and owned up. Yeah, he'd caught her, he'd discovered her. Then the Heist hit her with a sharp, "Why are you sneaking around?" She tried to explain she had a request, but he barked over her, telling her to go ask someone else. She pushed on and told him, "I'm headed to Gagasia too." And since they were going the same way, she claimed any companion would do. Then she pressed him hard. "So give me one real reason I can't go with you." He leans in on the elf and fires off questions, demanding to know why her misery has to land on him. From her sick bed, she explains it all. Only one rare herb can save her sister. She already has everything lined up, except that one missing ingredient. And of course, the timing couldn't be worse, because the monster's breeding season is in full swing. She keeps going, and now it's clear. Staying by his side is her smartest move. The Ghidorah Kingdom is handling the logistics, keeping everything smooth and clear, so he becomes the fastest, least cluttered route straight to her goal. Now out in the open field, he freezes in disbelief, sputtering that there's no way she could know that much about his mission. And she just smiles, saying her gut instinct told her to eavesdrop on his plans. Panic flashes across her face as she clenches her fist, pleading with him to take her along, because she has to save her sister, no matter what. He weighs her desperate plea and the deal she's offering, a star contract, no less. If she can bring him back the herb, he gets every last coin from the reward, but if she dies on the road, he's got permission to leave her body behind. Either way, they're just temporary travel companions until they hit their destination. Her eyes don't flinch, just steel and cold determination to win, even if it costs her everything. He finally gives in and agrees to travel with them, then shoots a hand up and lets raw energy snap and crackle, slapping his terms down as he growls one icy word, "Begone." He spells out the brutal rules, word by word. She lives and dies by her own strength, and he makes it crystal clear there's no companionship between them, not even a shred. Once the decision clicks in place, he spins on his heel and strides off. Then a few steps later, he halts, whips his head around and shouts, "Priscilla." She tilts her head up with a soft, confident smile, confirming it's really her name. Then she fires back and checks his 2 highs. Right as their journey kicks off, a deafening crack rips through the forest. Then a nearby goblin shrieks, its head splattering as an unseen force obliterates it. The blast's origin snaps into focus, a weird metallic weapon clutched in the Heist's hands, and Perseus just freezes, thinking it looks downright cursed. She smiles and says her divine blessing lets her see what regular people can't. Then Perseus grumbles a short, bitter remark like it's all personal. Then she snaps her focus to the tiny winged buddy floating right beside her, like the blessing made flesh, and the fairy tells her straight up that's exactly why Priscilla can sense it. The elf figures that must be the reason her knowledge feels boosted, but she still can't spot a single thing strange about Heist himself. Then she questions him and he's swallowed by his own thoughts. He lets out a tired, defeated sigh. His crazy gift, the weapon master skill, lets him pull armaments from another world, but he has no clue what it actually means. His skill unlocks a freaky arsenal, an M79 grenade launcher, a Winchester 1873, a Benelli Nova, and a Desert Eagle. And though he's stacked with ammo, the real size of his power is still sealed. He tells them only he can handle these weapons. Then as Priscilla reaches for his massive pack, it shatters into nothing at her touch, and once he realizes they've already gone far enough, Heist snaps that they're stopping here to make camp for the night. He sprints into a clearing and throws up a shockingly well-stocked camp, then crouches by the fire to manage his cooking pot while Persea watches, practically gushing as he admires just how high quality and one-of-a-kind his supplies are. His cooking complete, he slides a loaded tray toward her, one thick, hearty sandwich and a steaming bowl of soup, and she can't help but notice the ingredients are top-notch. Nothing like the usual slop even S-rank adventurers end up eating. She stalls mid-step and it hits him. This is just like their deal. "I thought we weren't allies," she fires back. He doesn't even turn around, he just orders, "Eat." She takes a cautious bite of the soup, and bam, her eyes pop wide with pure astonishment as the flavor hits like a knockout. While she's stunned by his cooking, Heist sits on the tent roof, thinking that if you're an S-rank porter, you've got to handle everything yourself. After the last bite, with her bowl finally empty, Procea shoots out a heartfelt thank you. Her gratitude hangs in the air as she keeps staring at him, and when he finally catches that unblinking look, he leans in and asks what's really on her mind. She blurts out how shocked she is, then admits she's genuinely grateful. She'd wrongly pegged him as some cold shut-in, but his actions prove she's dead wrong. Her heartfelt words hit him so hard he goes totally mute, and all that slips out is a stunned, huh. As her thoughts tumble through her, Persia finally spills the real reason behind her gratitude, because this journey isn't just luck, it's her shot to save her sister. As the campfire snaps and crackles beside them, she urges him to grab some rest too, smiling as she promises to ask the spirits to stand watch. Then she ends it with a bright, grateful thanks for the amazing dinner and curls up to sleep. He nods along, but as he stares up at the starry sky, a wave of wild nostalgia hits him out of nowhere. Just as they finally catch a breath, rustling slices through the trees. Heist's eyes snap wide, shock hits him like a punch, and he can't even believe what he's seeing. "What is that tree?" he blurts, barely able to look away. Look, towering over everything stands a colossal ancient tree, its branches clawing at the sky. This is the Great Tree, the guild's blazing symbol, and the very heart of the Yggdrasil clan. Krisha speaks of the tree's origin with pure reverence. People say one of the four sages, their leader Ibis, poured out their own staggering power and forged the Great Tree into existence. This shocking twist slams you right into one burning question: what are the four great clans? The answer is buried in their beginnings, because each clan traces back to its own kingdom, locking them together into the world's biggest power structure. Then the world's true power gets laid out in full Yggdrasil for the elves. Northward, the Holy Knights of Seyfried rule with an exclusive code, only letting in people with a blessing-worthy job. South, the world's biggest dungeon is run by the dwarf clan, the Stone Monarchs. And to the west, the Red Capital, the greatest entertainment district on the planet. Right as Hyzen Praesia barrels up to the Ghidorah Kingdom's main gate, etched into the base of that massive tree, an elf guard slams the brakes on them and demands their IDs, showing off a royal warrant and saying the royal family sent him to escort them toward Gagasia Mountain. His face tightens as he weighs the request, then he keeps his gaze locked on the truth and says it includes the young woman standing right beside him. She stays half-hidden behind him, peeking out from the folds of her cloak, while he murmurs questions about what she's doing, only for her to hush him and whisper, "Don't worry about me." The heist team flashes a letter of introduction from the Merchant Guild, and a coin to prove they belong, right in front of the guard's stunned face, and before he can react, an elderly elf with a long white beard steps out from inside the gate, barks at him to stand down and waves them through. The guard's flustered, thrown off by the sudden interruption, and he obeys without a fight. The elder snaps his head toward Heis, yells sorry for the wait, and immediately nails it. Heis is one of Geist's people. Heis barely opens his mouth when the elder blurts that the great sage Ibis is already waiting for him. Panic hits like a wave, and Heis clamps onto the old elf's arm, demanding they hurry and take him there. He snaps a look over his shoulder at Persia, telling her to hold back, and suspicion flashes across his face as he wonders how a single letter from Geist could flip the elves' whole mood so fast. As the elder snaps him forward, Persia closes the gap and steadies him, telling him the great sage Ibis holds power even stronger than the Ghidorah royal family, so he has nothing to fear, and the truth hits Heist so hard he just freezes in stunned silence. He trails the elder deeper into the trees, and when they stop in front of a huge gated contraption sunk into the wood, he can't help it. Heist blurts, "What is this?" The elder stays cool and just says it's an elevator. The contraption lifts with a gentle glide, then ding asterisk, it stops. As the gate slides back, the whole massive settlement spills into view, tucked high in the branches of the great tree, and the elder calls out, "We're here." A long, sun-speckled staircase stretches ahead, winding toward a grand shrine. Then the elder points and declares, "That's Ibis's sanctuary, and the sacred home of Yggdrasil's leader." With a sharp lightning snap, those ornate sliding doors burst open. They finally unveil a massive grand chamber. Heis and his elderly elven guide stride right in, and there, perched on a raised platform, sits a lone figure with long, light-colored hair. She tilts her head just a little, pipe pressed to her lips, and nods like it's the easiest greeting in the world. She spins around and bam, reveals she's an elf from Heist standing, Ibis, the clan master of Yggdrasil. With a grin that dares him to blink, she calls out Heist and tells him she knows he's Geist's disciple. Heist jerks his gaze up, stunned that she's right there, and that she knows exactly who he is. She raises the letter and nods. She's read Geist's message, and tells him plain as day, the old man needs her to help Heist. Then she erupts into laughter, saying the request caught her off guard, but she'll take it, pure goodwill. As Heist stays stone still, she leans in, sniffs the air and goes, "That's a divine medicine smell, and it's unmistakably pleasant." Her playful grin fades fast as she leans in and the seriousness hits her eyes. She clocks the gunpowder smell on him perfectly. Ibis jumps, stunned, and blurts that he can't believe she knows anything about guns. Then she answers in a cryptic snap of a sentence. She once knew someone just like him, before she backs away. Sensing his opening, Heist thrusts the mysterious book he's been hiding into the light, and demands the clanmaster spill anything she knows. Any clue, any lead, anything at all. Ibis snatches the book and her eyes rake over the cover. Then recognition hits like a spark as she whispers that eerie coincidence. Heist pushes her for answers, grilling her until he's sure she really does know what it is, and she confirms it without hesitation. Gazing at the open pages, Ibis suddenly spots the truth and declares that it's Nobunaga's diary. She snaps her eyes up from the diary, concentration flipping into pure shock, then flips through the pages and demands, "Heist, who are you?" saying he has to be from another world. She blurts out her disbelief, asking how someone from another world can even read the characters in that book. Then Heist admits he can only manage a tiny bit, and Ibis snatches it back, saying she has no idea what blessing lets him do it. As her black-tipped fingers graze the open page, she freezes, then it hits her like lightning. She can read way more than she ever could before. A mischievous grin lit up her face, and she decided this was too good to pass up, so she snapped at Heist to sit down and read the diary out loud. The moment he looked up at the towering elf, he nodded without a fight, promising he'd recite every word exactly. He starts reading a diary entry about how Ibis showed up, calling her a little cat in the text, and even Nobunaga muses about dressing her in a kitty costume. Then the second Ibis hears it, she explodes into a flustered rage and screams that it's all lies. Heist jolts, asks what's wrong, and Ibis rants about punishing Nobunaga, leaving him staring at everything like he's finally realizing there's more to their relationship than anyone's saying. Her embarrassment hits the breaking point. She yanks the book straight out of his hands, snaps, "That's enough for today," and tells him to come back another time if he still needs help. One sudden shove and Heist tumbles back, crashing onto the floor. Now out on the Gagasia mountainside slopes, he towers over the view, diary in hand, and the moment it clicks, opening to that exact page, he can't shake how creepy that living book idea feels, like it has a will of its own. Right as he starts moving, the earth rips open with a violent shake, then a massive worm-like monster bursts out, roaring so hard it rattles your bones. Beside him, the elf archer Prazia snaps that the mist is getting worse, but her view gets swallowed up the moment the beast fully surfaces. The creature drops its huge weight with a brutal slam, and the shock hurls Prazia into the air as he screams in panic. Seeing his friend get tossed aside, Heist clenches his jaw and snaps his tongue in pure frustration. He shoots forward in a blur, launching himself straight at the monster, and as his gauntlet lights up, he unleashes a storm of crushing blasts that hammer the creature's hide with explosive impact. His blow landed clean and smashed the colossal worm. Its gigantic body slammed the ground, and Prazia just stood there, frozen in stunned silence as the danger vanished right before her eyes. The creature's body spasmed, then it melted into nothing, poof, and as the magical pattern on his gauntlet faded, he snapped a warning at her to stay sharp, convinced the monster might have been prowling for sin. She snapped her head toward him, eyes full of confusion and gratitude, and demanded to know why he'd saved her when they weren't even on the same side. Then he wouldn't look her in the eye, saying only that her real mission was to heal her sister. He kept going, saying he did have to help, but her goal matched the same one that girl was chasing. Then, feeling awkward as hell, he awkwardly thanked Prazia for the solid advice she'd shared with him on their journey. Her stern, icy expression melted into a warm, knowing smile. She brushed off his explanation like it didn't matter, just thanked him, and that honest, heartfelt gratitude blindsided him so hard he let out a startled cry. Priscilla picked the pace back up, jerking her chin at a dark silhouette on the moonlit horizon, because that meant the dragon was out hunting, and she insisted they sprint now, grab what they came for, and disappear before it comes back. Rage started to simmer in him as he pushed her to hurry back the moment she grabbed the item. Then he snapped. Who in their right mind would ever bet against a dragon in its own territory? He mumbled that something was off, and Prazia shot back that she'd be handsomely rewarded for what she was doing. His unease snapped into certainty the moment the ground blew apart beneath them. More grotesque worm monsters tore up from the earth. He clenched his teeth, rage flaring, because he recognized that familiar nightmare. While a fresh swarm of monsters surged in behind her, Priscilla clenched her focus like a weapon and pushed through, until she finally hit her mark, a tiny clearing, where she stood holding a small bottle in her hand. She spun her gaze across the area, hope snapping into panic, because there was nothing there, not a trace, and when she pushed herself to move faster, it hit her like a punch. The thing she was searching for was gone. She drops to her knees in pure despair, sobbing that not a single leaf is left, and Ibis, standing over her like a judge, coldly demands to know where the Vin Noit Dan has gone. Persia wipes tears from her eyes and only manages a broken apology to her sister as Highs lies unconscious nearby. Their despair gets ripped apart by a deafening roar that rattles the ground beneath them. Then a monster the charts call an SS+, the Tandai Long, crashes onto the scene with its giant maw flung wide, and Priscilla's face twists into pure terror as she stares up at this new, unstoppable nightmare. Priscilla, the elf archer, dug in her heels and faced a monstrous giant toad head-on, while the creature belched out a gurgling roar with its cavern mouth yawning wide. Yet she just locked eyes with it, grim determination burning through her. She thinks, if I hit them hard enough, I can slip free. So she raises her bow, and a spiraling storm of magic swarms the arrowhead as she locks her aim. The enchanted arrow screams through the air and lands dead-on in the creature's head. Thud. Priscilla's stomach drops as the beast barely even flinches, and her face twists in disbelief. Her attack bounced off that brutal, high-stamina hide like nothing. When that weak attack hits, the giant toad erupts in a brutal, thunderous roar that rattles the ground. Priscilla flinches, her confidence shatters, and a raw scream of fear spills from her mouth. The monster's long, sticky tongue snaps out at impossible speed, and before she can even flinch, it clamps around her waist and hoists her clean off the ground with effortless force. With a savage slam, the creature hurls her to the ground, cracking the air with impact, then roars like it's won, its tongue tightening around her without letting go. Out of the chaos, a voice snaps through. High stands there, wheezing hard, his left eye black and bleeding. Priscilla, still trapped, jerks her gaze up in stunned disbelief and blurts out why he's here. High doesn't even answer. He roars for her to get back as he throws himself into the fight. He snaps his firearm up and fires off a blistering volley. Sparks explode in the air as the rounds ricochet harmlessly off the monster's brutal hide, and he bares his teeth in rage, realizing his firepower can't even leave a scratch. Unshaken, he snaps the smaller weapon back into its holster and whips out a massive double-barreled gun, its muzzles gaping wide as if they're ready to devour anything. He slides a tiny glowing vial into the weapon's chamber, snaps it shut, and with a sharp spin, swings the upgraded gun forward, ready to blast something way more savage than before. He yanked the trigger, boom. The night shattered with a deafening blast as the enhanced projectile tore out of the barrel and slammed the colossal toad right in the head. The hit slammed the beast off balance and it crumpled to the ground, dead as stone. Then Heist let out a shaky breath and confirmed, finally, that it was over. He spun toward Persa and asked if she was okay, and she just stammered out a small yes, still stunned that he'd taken down a dragon-like monster that easily. Her shock didn't last. It turned into a sharp question as she stared at him, her voice tight with worry, demanding why he was even there, and reminding him he was supposed to bolt back right after he picked the herbs. She stayed silent and it hit her. He'd sprinted back just to save her. Her face warmed with a sudden blush, but when she looked past him, her heart skipped as the flowers shimmered and glowed in the daytime, and Heist stared too, baffled like, wait, what's going on? Their eyes locked onto one particular bloom, the Vin Noyet Dan, and as they stared, its petals collapsed, its glow drained away, and the light faded right in front of them. Priscilla clocked it instantly. The dragon's blood was poisoning them, draining them to nothing, so she staggered back in shock, staring out over the ruined, withered fields. Panic flared inside her, and she snapped to Heiss, saying they'd only got a little more time. Then she pointed straight to the exact spot out in the distance. She sprinted wild through the field, snatching flowers as she went. Then a blazing flash lit up the distance, screaming that the fight was coming, and she snatched a pouch from her thigh with trembling care, she tucked a fragile glowing flower into a glass jar, then slammed the lid shut tight, sealing its light inside. She snapped her eyes back to the moment, spun the Heist around, and thrust a sealed jar into his hands, then flashed a bright grin and told him the dragon was finally down, and that this jar was his hard-earned reward. She urges him to take the gift, and warns she'll have to hunt for what she needs somewhere else. Then the Heist goes stone still, gripping that glowing jar tight, staring as she walks away with a face torn between pure confusion and real worry. Before he can even answer, a roar slices through the silence, shouting straight from the base of the mountain. A young male elf bolts toward them, terror written all over his face, yelling to Princess Prasia. He reaches the group and yanks High's shoulder at once, his voice cracking with pure relief and sharp blame. Then he blurts that they'd been terrified, because the princess is gone without a trace, with only a tiny note left behind. His eyes sharpen as he stares down Highs, demanding to know if he's really an S-class adventurer, and whether he was the one who rode shotgun with the princess on the trip to Gagasia. Highs meets his gaze, and with calm, unshakable certainty, he confirms it. He stays tight-lipped while the attendant spills the princess's real identity. Prasia isn't just some royal girl, she's Queen Alsara's heir, the princess of the Deepwood Kingdom of Ghidorah. Then the attendant grills her about why she's traveling, and his face hardens like he's finally spotting the truth he feared. Prasia's blood boils at his implication. She whips around, snapping whether he truly expects her to toss her sister aside and watch her die. The attendant won't meet her eyes, mumbling that maybe it's just fate, because even the sacred Gagasian mountain couldn't save her. She clenches her fist and her resolve turns to steel. Then the attendant pushes forward, begging her to come back with them so they can talk about her succession to the throne. Once the talk dives into royal business, Heist decides it's time to bolt. He pats Priscilla's shoulder once, says his farewell, then turns and walks off, leaving her frozen in stunned silence as she watches him go. Later, deep inside the kingdom of Ghidorah, Perseo falls apart in Queen Alsara's arms, tears pouring as she admits her quest crashed. She couldn't find a single Vin Noit Dan flower. Queen Alsara holds her close and soothes her shaking, devastated sister. She leans in and reassures her little sister, repeating those same words from earlier. Maybe this was just fate's script all along, and the queen presses home the truth. What matters isn't where she ends up, west or the central lands, but the road she fought to walk. Procea wipes her tears, nods once, and swallows her grief with a solemn promise. She thrusts a tiny gift into her sister's hands. Queen Alsara freezes in stunned disbelief, while Priscilla smiles and says it's just a little souvenir she picked up on her travels. The gift, Vin Noit Dan flower, sits flawlessly sealed inside a glass jar, and the moment she remembers getting it, emotion hits like a storm. Tears spill as she quietly thinks of the one who made it possible, Heist. A few days later, back at the Adventurers Guild, Heist sits alone at the counter, nursing a drink, while a guild official behind the desk snaps that he's botched yet another commission, again. The man keeps going, stunned that Heist botched a basic escort for the princess, and then flat out refused to take a single coin for his troubles. Just like that, the guild official shifts gears and hands him a fresh mission. He announces a brand new dungeon has been uncovered, says it needs investigating, and thrusts Heist the official request right into his hands. Right as Heist spun to leave, a voice he knew all too well snapped through the air, calling his name, so he froze mid-step, shocked, when Princess Prasia stood in the doorway, grinning bright and cheerful. Her return screams success. Thanks to medicine brewed from that magical flower, Queen Alsara has risen back to strength and is ready to take up her duties again, and now Alsara is more than grateful to him. Back in the present, Heist studies her with tired eyes and demands to know what she wants from him now. With the queen healed, she's been given the green light to keep traveling, and now she's determined to repay him for every bit of help he's given her. Ernest's sheer determination lights a spark in her, and she steps up, offering to be his companion, ready to help the moment he needs her. Heist is totally blindsided, and without thinking, he recoils and shuts the whole idea down immediately. His blunt refusal doesn't seem to faze her at all. An elven princess keeps her eyes on him and lets out a soft, knowing chuckle, wearing amused determination instead of disappointment. As he turns his back and strides off, his footsteps tapping softly through the silence, then she blurts out one last plea, begging him to join her, even if he won't do anything else. Her words slam him with a memory from just days ago, him strolling the city streets with his party finally assembled, when Procea, all smiles, pointed out a solid tavern right nearby, and he'd said nothing, swallowed up by his own thoughts. He still remembers every face from that day: Sasha, Reynolds, Robin, Piazzolla, Typhoon, Prince Cress, and Princess Muin, and back then they stood as one, striking steel with one goal: smash the royal family's trial and crush the Crystal Golan. Right at the mining entrance, Sasha stares into the pitch-black passage with steel in her eyes, knowing they need one crushing, perfectly synced strike. So she tells the whole crew to lock in their game plan before they push on to the end. Prince Crest strides forward and lays out the plan, telling everyone they'll start by using his duplicate power, pointing to two identical Sashas standing there, ready to move. He keeps the briefing going, saying once his power kicks in, Robin will unleash her exploding arrow, supercharging it with Princess Mia's power. With the plan locked in, Sasha steps forward and tells everyone she trusts them completely, then promises that as soon as their prep is done, she'll rush in and land the final blow. Reynolds, Robin, Heiss, and Philip lean in, eyes locked, soaking up every word. Then she shifts straight to the royal siblings and leans in, asking Prince Cress and Princess Nguyen, "Are you both ready to carry out your parts of the plan?" Cress and Nguyen burst out in perfect sync, shouting their affirmation together, their faces blazing with grit as they brace for the fight coming next. With their resolve locked in, Sasha declares it is time. Then she strides forward with total confidence, dragging the whole party straight into the mine's yawning darkness. Inside, the party steps into a jaw-dropping cavern packed wall-to-wall with blazing, high-purity crystals, glowing like a secret treasure vault. Princess Muin snaps into explanation that these mines exist to craft goods for export, and anyone caught trying to snatch even a single crystal without permission faces an instant execution. Sasha points out the magical scenery to Heiss, but he just falls silent, eyes drifting as memories spark of the wild claim that the quarry view hits even harder from the inside, and Piazzolla clocking every quiet, troubled beat in his face. His thoughts shatter the moment Princess Muin screams, "Stop!" and from the deep crystal ahead, a hulking golem of jagged rock and crystal looms out, instantly labeled by her as a crystal golem. From her lookout, Robin spots the crystal mine's entrance and shouts what she sees to the others. She's clocked 7 golems total, 5 patrolling deep inside, and 2 posted to guard the gate. Philip can't make heads or tails of it, firing off questions about what these creatures even are. As she speaks, Heist digs into the constructs and tells Sasha the truth. Those weird, broken movements aren't because they're alive. They're ore and stone that got twisted into golems. Reynolds slams in out of nowhere, turns to Sasha and demands a plan, then snaps that monsters hatch from something simple or just a deposit shouldn't be thinking like this. Sasha meets his eyes, locks in with a fierce determination, and starts to draw her sword like there's only one move left. She declares they're sticking to the original plan, then plants her hand on Prince Cress' shoulder and snaps for him to use his duplicate power. Right when her touch flares, the magic kicks in with a gentle, luminous glow. In the blink of an eye, a flawless copy of Sasha appears right next to her, and Robin immediately yells that everything now hinges on the princess, while Princess Mutin snaps her focus into place, blasting an explosion charm that engulfs Robin's arrows in light. Her arrow starts blazing with raw power, and Robin yanks her bow back hard, ready to unleash a storm of projectiles. Then she snaps out a determined cry. It's time for battle. She snapped her fingers and loosed the enchanted arrows, each one streaking across the battlefield and slamming into the smaller golems, detonating in brutal explosions that blew apart the frontline guardians. With the smaller threats crushed, the 2 sashes rocket forward side by side, then spring into the air together, blades blazing a wide, glowing curve as they unleash the White Lotus slash. Their synchronized strike finally lands, slam, connect, and carve straight through the 2 massive guardian golems, cracking their crystal bodies into pieces as they crumble under the combined assault. As the dust finally clears, Sasha speaks up like it's over for good. Every monster is destroyed. Piazzolla can't stop staring at how Cress' blessing crushed them all. But Princess Mutin is wrecked, panting hard like she ran a war. She tells everyone she's got to sleep and recover for a full day before she can copy another blessing. She leans into the suffocating darkness of the mineshaft, and dread slithers up her spine. Something feels wrong in there, and her instincts snap into full, ruthless alert. Her brother, Prince Cress, clocks the shift in her mood and presses her. Are you joking? But she shoots back, grim-faced. No, it's real. Then swears that the crystal golem they just fought was unlike anything she's ever laid eyes on. His expression tightens, then the moment those words land, a hard realization flashes across his face. They've been detected. He steps forward like he owns the room, voice booming as he orders the whole party to stay on high alert, because this mission won't forgive even one careless mistake. Right after he gives the order, the crew pushes into a huge dugout chamber, marked as a crystal workshop, and one of them blurts out that their quarry is seriously skilled. In the dim shadows, a horned man sprawls on a pile of rubble, drawling about the pretty, white-haired girl, until Sasha snaps, "Who are you?" He grins and declares himself, Crane of the Demon Clan. That name ripples through every heist plan like a shockwave. He stammers, Demon Clan, in pure disbelief, replaying how they once fought tooth and claw for control over humanity itself. Yeah, this world is split clean in 2. The human realm on one side, the demon realm on the other. That massive invasion was stopped by one lone hero, but it didn't mend a thing. The land itself broke apart. So now, the ground they're standing on, it's already demon realm soil, and the monster in front of them isn't just nearby, it's one of the residents. In the blink of an eye, Crane rockets in behind the party, his speed downright terrifying. Then he starts needling them, asking how they crossed between the realms, a feat everyone swears is impossible, and with zero hesitation he even asks how the Demon King is doing. His sudden arrival and chilling words set off brutal heists, and he whips around to Sasha with a strained voice, screaming that they have to retreat right now. Sasha glances back, totally thrown by how fast everything went from bad to deadly. A new historical picture blows the lid off how massive these battles really were. An ancient map shows a brutal war where thousands of soldiers threw their lives into the chaos, charging straight into a horde of terrifying demons that each stood as a threat all on their own. Right now, the demon Crane strolls off from the down heist with a smug chuckle, taunting him and praising his stubborn nerve. Then it smirks that it'll let him live this once, while he slowly drags himself upright. As he clutches a glowing crystal he snatched from the workshop, Sasha slams into him, her voice slicing with suspicion. She demands to know what he plans to do with it, but he just smirks and says his work is already finished. He keeps going, swatting away their chatter like it's annoying noise, then fires back that if they're going to compliment him, they'd better bring real energy, while a dismissive breeze ripples through Sasha's hair as he talks. He bursts into a hearty laugh, catching their formal address, and tells them to drop it. He says a more familiar tone fits better, and somehow his warm, friendly vibe stands out like a bright star in the middle of all that tension. His grin gets snuffed out in an instant. Sasha is suddenly right behind him, sword out and blazing with power, and Crane's eyes go wide as he realizes he's staring down her brutal killing intent, stunned by what just happened. Her sudden strike blasts a shockwave straight through her companions. High lunges in panic, yelling her name, while Reynolds snaps that she just tossed the rules aside. Sasha doesn't even flinch. She declares she'll exterminate the human who's daring to spark chaos in Highbelk. And just like that, Piazzala steps in, saying the mining permit's already been revoked. When the confrontation erupts, power surges through the party as enhancement magic hits the air. Then Crane just smirks like he's waiting for this moment. With a lazy flick of his finger, he whips up a twisting wind vortex and hurls it straight at Heist. He scoffs at the whole setup, barely impressed that they're wasting 3 enhancement spells. Then the wind whips into him and he slams into the cavern wall, right as Sasha screams his name. She glares at the Crane, her eyes icy, and cuts him down like he's nothing but trash. Then he disappears in a blink, and reappears right in front of Sasha with his fist drawn back like a predator striking. He taunts her, claiming it's just a technique, and the moment he swings, a brutal punch surges forward, wrapped in raging wind. Reynolds can only scream a last-second warning as that hit is inches from landing. She stared down Demon Crane as he loomed over her with a razor grin, and he jabbed at her nerves, calling out if she was scared now, while his power tore debris through the air, screaming that he wasn't some simple fan meant to cool her down, but pure destruction. Then he launched skyward, hanging in the middle of a spinning storm of wreckage, looking down on the whole party and laughing them off like mere flies, before offering to grant their wish for death. She planted her feet and refused to budge, even when the pressure hit. Sasha admitted Crane was a beast of a demon, but snapped back that sheer power doesn't win everything. Fighting isn't just skills or muscle, and she swore she'd prove it, damn it, and Crane, amused, couldn't help but grin at her fiery, stubborn streak. Out of nowhere, a hailstorm of projectiles slammed into him, blasting the air with violent concussions. So he reeled back, snapped his head around, and demanded, "Who the hell just attacked me?" His eyes locked onto the culprit, Philip, wheezing and bent over after swinging that staff with everything he had. But the demon just scoffed in disbelief like, how in the world could some puny brat fling me around with nothing but junk? Just as he tried to react, a fresh barrage of tiny, lightning-fast shots slammed into him, bursting into another brutal explosion. And when the smoke cleared, a calm voice from the dark asked if he was done playing. When the dust finally cleared, the whole crew came into view. Heiss, Reynolds, Philip, Piazzolla, and Robin, crouched behind 2 huge, magically summoned shields, while Crane snapped with annoyed frustration at how perfectly they held the line together. Floating nearby, the elf Piazzala smirked at him and said, "One tree doesn't make a forest, your power alone isn't enough." Her words cracked the moment wide open, and Piazzala finished the proverb, 3 trees together can rise into a high mountain, right as Sasha surged forward, sword blazing with power, catching the demon totally unprepared. Her blade tore deep across his chest, and Crane staggered back, choking on pain and pure shock. She stood over him, fully sure she'd landed the hit, and Sasha snapped that his time messing with them was finally over. She watches in shock as Demon Crane erupts into a blood-chilling rant, swearing he'll root out every last human trash first, then burn their homes next, and finally level the whole kingdom. His rage spikes higher and higher, that bare eye blazing with pure malice, until he locks onto Sasha, the sword wielder, like she's his next target. With the threat delivered, he detonates into motion, vanishing in a blur, only disturbed air and cracked earth screaming where he just tore through. Even after the demon vanishes out of nowhere, Sasha doesn't flinch. She locks her eyes forward, perfectly still, tracking every silent shift he makes from the shadows. At the Grand Habel Palace, the whole air feels heavy. Have the demon gods finally slipped into the capital? In the throne room, Princess Muin strides up to King Barbaros and reports the terrifying news. Someone calling himself Crane has shown up, shouting open plans to topple the kingdom of Habelk, and the moment the king hears it, a grim look locks onto his face. Her brother, Prince Cress, cuts in and says he'll take the report himself from her, and as Muin bows and thanks the king, Barbaros's eyes soften, his disappointment still burning as he admits he's devastated that Heiss couldn't finish the mission. Then he turns straight to the sacred party and praises their legendary deeds, firing off the promise that he'll grant them one wish, so he demands to know, right there, what they want most. As Sasha hears his offer, she steps forward like she can't believe her luck, eyes blazing with hope and shock. She speaks up, officially begging for a private headquarters for the sacred party, their clan home. And the king, along with his advisor Bonnet, looks like they knew she'd ask for it all along. This prize is the sweet payoff from a joyful day. Reynolds, Heiss, Sasha, Piazzolla, and Philip threw a sacred celebration after they crushed their mission and earned a promotion straight into the elite S rank. As Bonnet hustled back into the throne room, he flashed Sasha a warm smile and waved off her thanks, like she'd earned every bit of it. Then his face sharpened into curiosity as he grilled her about what happened with the heist mission failure. This question hangs there for a second, but the truth hits harder. Heiss had actually managed to steal back what they asked for from the Adora kingdom, the rare flower Vin Noit Dan, Now Sasha just stares at the preserved bloom, stunned. A single flower was chosen for an urgent mission, to cure the deadly illness crushing Queen Alcera, who lies feversick and barely holding onto life in her bed. Heist kept slacking off because her condition was truly grim, so he blew off his official duties and handed a life-saving flower straight to Prussia, the Queen's own younger sister, not to his superiors. In the thick of a brutal standoff, Crane jabbed his finger at Heist and lit him up. Sure, Heist blew the mission, but you can't just shrug off what he did when he risked everything to save the Ghidorah royal family. Then Crane dropped the real bomb. The king had already pardoned him. Heist didn't take it, he refused. And right then, Crane's fist clenched like pure frustration was spilling out of his hand. Elsewhere, Royal Advisor Bonnet leans in toward Sasha in a lively Piazzolla, and Piazzolla can't sit still. He blazes with curiosity, asks what Procea did next, and shoots back that Heist has the same old lack of ambition, as always, while Sasha just stares in shock. Bonnet leans in and says Procea has left Ghidorah to go adventuring, and then, like he's sure as day, he adds that she's out there right now, traveling beside Heist, because as he talks, we see Heist and Procea walking off together, perfectly sealing the truth. This shocking twist makes Piazzolla snap. He shouts in pure disbelief, demanding why Procea would ever join forces with people who pull off heists, and Sasha stays silent as her face flips from confusion to clear worry. Sasha's companion erupts, but it barely helps, so her eyes slip downward as she murmurs to herself, wondering if Heist really plans to forge a brand new party with the elf princess. While the guild hall bustles, Heist sits face to face with Guild Mastergeist. Then the old man leans in and asks if Heist's finally taking a break. Heist jolts in surprise and shoots back that, yeah, he's taking one. They tell him his dungeon run is officially over, and Jays slaps a fresh S-rank adventure card into his hands, straight up saying that from floor 60 onward, only top-tier teams get in. The guild master just watches, thinking Heist must have his own reasons for showing up, and then asks the real question. Will he need yet another card to finish what he started? Once the formalities died down, Jace tells Heist to chill, soak up his youth and face the truth. He's only 16 or 17. Piazzolla catches it all and teases, so, what's your plan for the spring festival coming up? And right then, Heist is left completely stunned. Before Heist can even process his confusion, Persia suddenly slips close with a grin so wide it's practically mischievous, asking if he's still dodging her company, so hard that Heist chokes and spits out his drink. Piazzolla bursts out pointing at her like it's the funniest thing in the world, shouting that Persia is straight up clinging to him, and Fluster Heist can barely keep it together as he growls, "Are you messing with me?" As the chaos dies down, Jays drops a steadying hand on Heist's shoulder, and with a serious yet gentle look, the guildmaster tells him he truly believes this is exactly where Heist was meant to be. He studies that flyer for the annual Old Book Fair, hosted right in the reusing district of Habok, and his eyes light up. This is the perfect shot to hunt rare books and steal a peaceful day. As he weighs the idea, Procea bursts in with a bright smile and asks if he's headed to the fair. Before he can even answer, she declares she's coming too and swears she'll be waiting. And even though he's stunned for a second, he goes along. They roll up to the loud, crowded Old Market district fast, and suddenly the streets are buzzing with people circling stalls and shouting deals, while Priscilla grins and says he got lost in his own head the second they arrived. His eyes lock onto a certain bookshop, and the sign promises a treasure trove of stories, so he charges right in to see what it's hiding. He stops in the middle of the room and scans everything, stunned by the wall of books stacked floor to ceiling. His eyes snap to a single book tucked on the table, ***, the adventure diary of the S-rank adventurer, Gerald ***. He doesn't know the name, but he clocks it and plans to grill someone about this Gerald at the guild later. Still, curiosity claws at him, so he reaches for the book right now. Right as his gauntlet fingers hover over the spine, a second hand slips in and softly touches his. He whips around, shocked to find Sasha right there. She starts apologizing, but the moment she clocks who she bumped into, her apology collapses. That awkward moment gets blown up the second the rest of the sacred party shows up. Reynolds snaps right away, questioning why Heist is there, and Piazzolla grins and hits him with, "So, is this a date?" Caught between them, Sasha gets completely rattled. He instantly freezes as Reynolds laughs, pinning Piazzolla in a playful headlock. Piazzolla yells that there's no couple, but all the attention is glued to his former comrade. The book slips right out of his grip and lands on the floor with a gentle thud ***, and the moment it hits, a familiar voice screams his name, Heist. He looks up and there's Sasha, asking what's wrong and if he's still going at it with someone again. So Piazzolla, finally free of Reynolds' grasp, nudges them to grab a drink and jokes that his legs must be wiped out, while Heist just gives a tight, silent smile and says nothing. He snaps his back to him and cuts the moment. "I'm leaving," he declares, then strides off while Reynolds and Piazzolla just watch him vanish into the distance. Moments later, in a cozy outdoor cafe seat, Priscilla leans in and asks if the woman he spotted was Sasha. Right away, Heist nods, telling her they're just his old party members. She pushes the point hard, dropping that Sasha was his childhood friend, so he snaps, waving it off as some dusty old game, like that whole past bond has zero to do with him anymore. Chrissy softens as she urges him to stop lying to himself, pushing him to face the truth. Was what he felt for Sasha really love, or did it go the other way? Her voice hardens on the spot. She slams it into him that they almost killed him, and that he already knows it from his own digging. Betrayal hits him like a flashbang, and suddenly the memory is everywhere. Priscilla admits the motive's still a blur, but the fact remains brutal. They tried to take his life. His face twists in pure anguish, and he blurts, "How am I supposed to go back to the way things were?" And that question just hangs there, heavy in the air. Priscilla locks eyes with him from across the table and tells him, flat and final, there's no turning back. When he drops his gaze, swallowed by thought, she presses one more question into the silence. Did you ever want that? He could only stare as chaos detonated. Crane, the horned fiend, ripped into the fray screaming curses while the monstrous swarm closed in. Then he bellowed Supreme Earth Layer. And the ground surged up like a trap, crushing the beasts into the dirt, as he roared that the damned maggots would be ground to dust. The horned warrior snapped his chilling stare onto them, voice razor-low and dangerous as he swore he'd cut them down one by one. Then Precy's eyes blew wide with sudden realization. She knew him. He was the legend of Highbell. With a sharp snap of his fingers, another monstrous stone beast erupted into existence right before them, and Heist didn't even flinch, just flashed that smug smirk, cracked his knuckles, and dared to find out what kind of face his rival would pull when they collided again. But right before Heist could move, the stone beast got obliterated, its head shattered into dust. Crane loomed over the wreckage, his grin stretching into a total psycho grin. Then he mused out loud about whether one palm strike had ever killed anyone, and he reached out, demanding, "Beg me." 1 month later, inside the guild hall, a maid hurriedly wipes dust from the floor beside a towering banner, while an open newspaper lays there, bragging about the sacred party's non-stop rise and hinting at a great sin that's about to crash down. While she's working, a door creaks open and snaps her attention. She spins around in shock to see Heist stumble in, utterly drained and worn out. Just as she's about to greet him, a loud burst of chatter explodes from another group, so the maid spins around and congratulates the Thousand Party on their promotion to Dear Inc. The group's spiky-haired young leader only laughs and waves it off like it was nothing. With a sly grin, he leans in and tells them they've been grinding just as hard ever since they joined the Sacred Guild. He snaps the truth into place. This wasn't just his grind, it was the whole party's hard work paying off, and then he introduces his crew. Stoichua and Tenor, the cheerful fighter who brings energy to every clash. Lauren, the leader, lets pride crumble in an instant. He blurts out, totally baffled, admitting he was blessed to get accepted into the sacred place. But then he can't stop asking one thing. Why did they shove him into a pair with a young girl the moment he joined? His outburst hits like a spark, and everyone reacts in a rush. Tennessee frets. Matt grumbles that he's making too much noise. Koa snaps that everyone looks up to Sasha, and Lauren fires back that it's only natural for him to be with her. He clenches his fist and stares like he's about to tear destiny in half, vowing this is his shot to climb straight up to Esray. His fiery declaration hits a wall the second QI yanks him back, snapping with pure exasperation that he needs to stop yelling like that. Right then, the maid's voice slices through the chaos and tells Heis he looks wrecked, and the Thousand Party whips around, while Lauren stares over his shoulder, stunned, demanding who Sacred Heist even is and how he could possibly be going after Esrain. He shoots down Heist's retreat with a cold shove, then whips out a huge, weirdly shaped weapon. Lauren blurts that it's cursed, still packed with the soul of its last owner, and offers it to Heist like a gift. Heist scoffs and tells him to keep it, but Lauren's grin stretches too far, wide manic like he's daring fate. Lauren barrels forward and shoves the monster's severed head into the spotlight, screaming that it's a rare elven ingredient, while Kua watches in horror, as he roars that the heist is finally here. As Lawrence's party reels in stunned silence and pure embarrassment, King Barbaros's voice slices through the chaos. He declares that the royal family is now confirming that exact ingredient is the prize inside a 30 million gold S-rank quest. The story swings into a massive grand hall where King Barbaros, standing with his kids and advisors, faces an unseen crowd and slices through the pleasantries, announcing he's going straight for the real issue. His audience isn't random at all, it's the realm's most feared powerhouses, packed in one place. Chaos, the Judgment Tribe's leader, Mamacha, an S-rank adventurer called Blood Battle, and Jaya Basin, ruler of the barbarian tribe. The king kicks off his briefing, and the news is terrifying. Recent investigations say B-rank monsters and up have started reproducing at an uncontrollable, unstoppable rate. The assembly is underway inside the Supreme Hell Floor, right near the capital, where he'd hunted down the heist before, and his whole crew shows up too. Sasha, Reynolds, and Philip included. Among the summoned heroes, you'll find the Sacred Guild's core crew, Heiss, the Beast Tamer, Sasha, and the White Heavenly Knight, plus their powerhouse leader, Guildmaster Geist, the King of the Iron Fist. With a grim stare, King Barbaro slams a name onto the terror, Beast Stampede, and the moment he speaks it, every warrior in the crowd jolts with shock, their faces twisting into disbelief and dread. This Beast Stampede is when monster numbers skyrocket out of control. Then, when they get too crowded, they surge into new territory and turn their old lands into a deadly, lifeless wasteland where nothing else can survive. His Majesty kept talking, laying out every nasty detail of the crisis, revealing that the Storm Cannon, a monster that was supposed to exist only on the 60th floor, had inexplicably shown up on the 10th. To crush the problem fast, he gave Guildmaster Geist the green light to handle it, even letting him open the dungeon to the public. And as the order landed, his advisor Bonnet bowed hard in acknowledgement. That wasn't just a small glitch, it was the first crack in a much bigger disaster. The dungeon's ecological balance collapsed, its territory shrank, and monsters from the lower levels spilled upward, flooding the upper floors to hunt for any new ground they could find. These monsters weren't just lurching around, they were marching with a mission, and if the guild's numbers were right, they were zeroing in on the royal capital itself. Guildmaster Geist snapped into alarm, because the sight alone shoved him back to 30 years ago, when the same nightmare nearly wiped the capital out. The danger was massive, so huge that even for a mid-level dungeon, the stampede was expected to smash through with a terrifying 20,000 creatures. The history books didn't lie. When that last stampede finally burned out, 3 towns and 7 full villages were wiped off the map. His face hardened under the brutal weight of that history. He admitted this was the 7th stampede. Yet again, it crawled up from the supreme hell floor. Even he couldn't have predicted it. And now, all they had left was to lock arms and stand united. His call for unity got a messy reaction. Prince Cress snapped his gaze away in disgust. Mama Cha huffed with pure frustration, mumbling that this whole mess was just a terrifying sheet, while the king ignored the noise and fixed his eyes on Guildmaster Geist. Then he barked his orders. Geist had to race to every adventurer guild and demand help, even from neighboring nations, while Bonnet got the royal army ready at top speed, and both men snapped to the task without a single second of hesitation. With his orders delivered, he shot up and slammed his palm on the table like a thunderclap, then snapped. No, this wasn't just chaos or a stampede, it was an unprecedented crisis. The fate of the kingdom was on the line, and it all rested on every single person in that room. His eyes scanned every leader gathered there, grim resolve in his face, but trust shining through it too. "I'm counting on every single one of you," he declared, and his voice hit the room like authority with hope behind it. After the royal decree hit, Heist stood frozen in silence, a fresh bandage wrapped tight and an eye patch over his left eye, and Sasha stared at him with pure, worried concern. While the other leaders bickered, Burly Jarabson slammed the table and demanded that every clan team up for this never-seen threat. Get ready together. Mama Cha nodded hard, saying the promised rewards were just as unbelievable. Sasha proposed a way crazier move: ditch the defensive fight, storm the dungeon head first, dive all the way to the bottom floor, and take out the final boss to stop the stampede at the source. The sheer audacity of it left Piazzolla totally stunned. Elsewhere, Chaos tried to make sense of it all, grilling Heiss over how he'd just been bumped up to S rank, then reminded him that his blessing skill was worthless inside the dungeon and pushed a better way to use it. But Heiss snapped up, clutching a document like it was everything, and walked out anyway, leaving Chaos to shout after him. He froze in the doorway, face turned away from the room, and slammed his decision down. "I'm sorry, but I refuse." His refusal lit a blaze of fury in the other leaders. Jarabson spat at his arrogance, and Piazzolla sneered, like a fool with that kind of attitude was doomed to get cut down sooner rather than later. As soon as the news hit the throne, King Barbaros burst into wild laughter, delighted to the point of driving Princess Muin into visible fury. Then he boomed that this kind of defiant spirit wasn't a problem at all. It was exactly what made someone useful. Sasha couldn't share that feeling. She just stared after where Heiss vanished, her face locked in pure disbelief as she tried to wrap her mind around why he'd make a move like that. 10 days tore by, while across the kingdom, loud newspapers blasted the horrifying news, complete with maps that tracked the beast stampede's brutal, relentless surge. As the crisis spiraled out of control, the Merchants Guild finally snapped and announced a total, indefinite freeze on every commission and mission. Just like the Whispers promised, the massive upheaval was about to ignite within days. With the danger closing in, King Barbaros strode to the front of his knights, roaring his orders from the castle balcony like the whole kingdom could hear him. His words did nothing to stop the panic from surging through the streets. Across the whole land, people snatched up whatever they could and fled their homes in a frantic, desperate stampede. The moment the city streets exploded into chaos, everyone sprinted for cover, and right in the middle of it all, Jarabson and the other battle-tested adventurers didn't flinch, faces hard, eyes locked on the panicked evacuation. As the moment played out, King Barbaro's war-weary resolve like a shield, and beside him, Princess Muin couldn't hide the crushing worry she carried for their people. Elsewhere, Sasha stared straight at the horizon, jaw set with pure determination, yet fear still prickled in her chest, because that battle was coming. Home, the beast stampede erupts. While the kingdom braced for impact, Heist stayed in a calm corner of the city, paying an elderly shopkeeper. Then he pressed the old man with a hard question. Why wouldn't he leave for another town? The shopkeeper leaned in and confessed his dream, running his business right here, then said he'd actually gotten that wish. The second he finished, a deafening roar outside ripped through the air and rattled the whole building to its core. Then he raised a framed photo of his family, his wife and a smiling son, and said he felt lucky, because at that moment they weren't even home. His voice, worn down to resignation, cut through the bleak wasteland as he warned, with cold certainty, that the horde storming toward them would tear everything apart and leave not a single bone for even a proper burial. Tears brimmed in the old man's eyes as he confessed that his home, his family, and his reputation were all he had left to gamble. Then he slammed the point home. The inn was all that remained of his family's legacy. With a gentle thud, he shut the book on the counter and swore to guard his dream and his son. Heist sat in silence, swallowing every word of the heartfelt confession, his face masked by his dark hair and a fresh eye patch that had just appeared. She spun toward the counter, and the coins went clinking loud enough to shatter the quiet. He told the stunned shopkeeper the money wasn't just for tonight's stay, it also covered breakfast the very next morning. Up on the city's brutal outer wall, the full horror finally hit. An estimated 70,000 beasts were bearing down on them. A terrifying roar crashed across the battlements as Guildmaster guys rallied the defenders to fight for their king and their people, and right beside him, Sasha's voice sliced through the fear. She swore she'd be their shield, their sword, unbreakable. Her defiant cry got cut off instantly as Scout burst in with a panicked report. The estimate was off. The real number was 100,000, and Jays, Sasha, and the rest of the wall defenders were hit with a wave of stunned disbelief. As the first hint of spare time settled over the ramparts, Heist burst onto the empty city streets, long coat snapping in the wind, moving like he had a plan, eyes locked ahead, charging straight into the impossible tide all on his own. As a swarm of grotesque, goblin-like creatures comes charging, he digs in and refuses to back down. Then he materializes a massive four-barreled gun that flares with brutal light, sights locked in, just as one monster shrieks, "We're here." He fires off a blast that sends 3 giant projectiles screaming through the sky like missiles, and when they slam into the battlefield, they explode on impact, turning the front lines of the horde into a blazing wall of fire, as he starts summoning his next round of ordnance. With a roar ripping from his lungs, the missile launcher disappears, and in its place, an enormous multi-barreled rotary cannon spins into existence. The raw force of that summoned beast surges through him as he steels himself to fire again. He unleashes a brutal wall of fire. Cannons roar and spit flaming projectiles that rip clean through the monstrous ranks, shredding the creatures into a chaotic spray, while their screams get swallowed by the weapon's thunder. Reynolds gauges the distance and blurts out how insane this sight is, while Sasha stares, stunned, and wonders if this brutal power is really a blessing for a heist. Far off, a commander barks orders, then archers loose, and a storm of arrows sweeps across the sky. Out of nowhere, a horned demon crane swoops in front of Sasha, cackling like it's lost its mind. Then it spits insults at her, calling her a bitch, and taunts her that her little party will be dragged into the bloody celebration it's cooking up. His focus snaps right back to the heists and the brutal assault unfolding, and he notices a crane squinting like it's trying to crack the mystery. What kind of weapon could throw down a spectacle like this? Because this fight has turned into a one-man show. He locks eyes on the far-off warrior, contempt curdling across his face, and he growls a filthy curse at that brat. Meanwhile, Reynolds takes command and snaps orders to the vanguard to push ahead. He's betting everything on Sasha, Robin, the armored warrior, and Philip as they gear up to crash into the chaos. Robin bursts into the fray with a ferocious roar, then swings her massive weapon in a brutal arc, splatting a goblin into a bloody pulp right on the ground. She clenches her teeth, fires up her non-gigantification ability, and demands her comrades hang in there with her. Right on the spot, a hulking, one-eyed beast roars. Then she rockets into the chaos, snapping her blade through the air with a blazing arc against the monstrous tide. On another stretch of the battlefield, Jarbason slams his weapon to the ground and rips open an earthquake of raw power, while Reynolds just smirks and clicks on his poison ability, watching those writhing creatures squirm like a gross little nightmare. Right as he locks in his observation, a brutal impact slams the ground and shatters everything, dust raining down. Then Demon Crane steps out in front of him and roars, demanding to know who he is. and Reynolds can only freeze in shock while Crane clocks just how fast he scrambled to retrieve. He smirks, clocking Reynolds as the same man from Sasha's reports. Then the demon leans in and demands, point blank, whether Reynolds knows Sasha. Crane doesn't even wait. He fires off a question, declares he's going to wipe him out, then drags Reynolds and Isa into it, sneering that he's trash for forgetting Sasha outranks him. That insult hit like lightning in his chest. Then Reynolds let out a furious roar and sprinted forward, sword blazing as it swung straight for the demon. The demon vanishes, then in the blink of an eye, Crane is suddenly behind him, totally unharmed, while an explosion tears through the forest miles back. Sasha screams a warning to Reynolds, the demon is here. Her warning gets swallowed as an even bigger terror crashes in. Monsters pour over the ridge in a brutal swarm, a non-stop tide of snarling beasts. Sasha's eyes go wide when she finally gets it. They're in serious trouble now, and Reynolds is yelling for everyone to look. The ground trembles, splits and groans. Then a colossal armored monster, a living mountain of jagged rock, erupts from the earth with a deafening roar, and when Reynolds spots that new behemoth, he frantically screams Sasha's name. He watched in stunned silence as that colossal rock monster, an earthborn beast of pure fury, smashed the ground right in front of him with overwhelming power. The beast tore the sky open with a deafening roar, and its echo slammed across the battlefield as Reynolds spotted the total chaos, goblins swarming like a living flood, and shouted Sasha's name in panic. When Sasha heard his cry, she snapped her head toward him, eyes locked and jaw set. She told him they'd take down the giant thing and that the heist was her job, not his. Trust me, it'll be fine. Then she spun on her heel and charged straight into the goblins, bellowing for retreat as she got ready to slam into the enemy. Far off, the demon Crane just watched it all, smirking like it didn't have a care in the world. His grin got wiped off the second a new figure popped into existence right in front of him, Heiss. Crane blinked, thrown off like, wait, were you even awake? Then the demon dropped the trap. A hail of tiny cylindrical projectiles crashed down, catching Heiss completely off guard. And with that, he taunted him, mocking his projection style like it's as run-of-the-mill as water outside the demon world. He panicked and dodged as deadly projectiles tore past him at blistering speed, while Crane, still floating in the air, smirked like he was judging homework, then snapped his fingers and launched the attack. Explosions tore the air apart, flooding the battlefield with fire and smoke. Crane even marveled at the brutal magic, but when the haze finally lifted, the heist was still standing, unscathed. Crane's eyes snapped to the demon as it declared him the demon's real opponent. Suiting up in a ruthless new set of dark armor, he shot forward with impossible speed, slipping through the next brutal blast as Crane blurted in shock at the strength of the magic, then wondered if Heiss could really stick a hit. When Heiss finally landed and kicked up a cloud of dust, the demon stayed on him from above, hammering in for his next move. He knew one slip and he'd be dead, then it hit him. If he could break the rhythm of those projectiles, the whole attack would stop. The next wave slammed in, and without rushing, he planted his hand on the ground. The incoming shots exploded into harmless bursts of light. In that quick breath of calm, Sasha's voice snapped in from behind him. She laid a steadying hand on his shoulder, told him to stay strong because she was right there, and then pushed them to charge back in together. Her words snapped the tension in half. Then a confident grin lit up his face as his gauntlet started to glow, power surging into his hand for the assault they were about to launch together. He swings a huge double-barreled gun up at the demon, eyes bulging in total shock, and blurts out questions. How can this possibly be real? What kind of trick lets Heist unleash power like that while his own magic is still running? He yanks the trigger, and Sasha stands right beside him, pouring brilliant, swirling energy into the weapon's blast. Then they tear open a massive spiral vortex that swallows Crane whole. The demon screams, his face twisted into pure shock and humiliation, unable to believe his own terrifying magic has snapped back and crushed him. Once the blast's energy finally fades, his body starts to wobble and slip out of shape. A heavy silence crashes over the shattered land, splintered earth, scattered debris, and out in the middle of all that ruin, Sasha and Heisen stand there, the only lights left in a dead world. A cheerful voice shatters the quiet. Piazzolla steps into view with a bright, unbothered smile. She thanks Heis for his help, then teases him that afternoon tea would make the perfect reward. Right before he can answer, his face snaps into pure shock. His head jerks around as he blurts out Sasha's name in a panic, and that sudden alarm throws Piazzolla off guard. Her name rang out through his cry, right for her. Far away, Sasha staggered and panted, blood and grime smeared across her face, while at her feet the colossal rock monster's massive body split apart and crumbled into dust, fully and finally defeated. A frantic alert crashes across the battlefield. Every soldier and adventurer gets it. The SS plus demon beast is here, the demon emperor. Then the commander orders the charge, and that living rock giant rips the sky with a guttural roar. Every warrior locks in, unleashing everything they've got. Sensing the deadly threat, Sasha explodes forward and launches high into the air, then slams her sword down with brutal force onto the monster's head, only to get stopped by a deafening clang as the blade fails to even bite into its rocky hide. The strike blasts a shockwave outward, and Piazzolla shrieks a warning. She gets slammed backward by the recoil, her face twisting into pure frustration when she realizes the creature's shell can't be broken, and as she tumbles through the air to scramble back to her feet, Reynolds tears into the sky shouting her name, his voice thick with worry. The second Sasha lets her guard slip, everything pounces on her, because the Demon Emperor's arrival detonated chaos all around, and from the dark woods a goblin horde surges in, sealing off any escape. She's suddenly boxed in, and one of them lunges so hard it rips a scream right out of her. As soon as she tumbles into danger, Rental tears through the goblin crowd, slamming a path forward while snarling insults at those vile monsters. He fights tooth and nail to reach her, but Sasha drops to her knees first, utterly worn out and drowning under the sheer crush of the horde. He yells her name again as the goblin barrels in on her helpless body, and right when its claws are moments from landing, wham, its head bursts apart in a black spray, blasted by some unseen power. That tiny moment of relief gets snatched away the instant the colossal demon emperor starts churning a blinding light inside its gaping maw. Reynolds clutches a glowing magical item, and dread hits him like a truck. He tries to scream at Sasha to run, but he's too far, trapped in his own fight, and he can already feel it. He won't reach her in time. With a deafening roar, the monster hurls a wave of pure destruction. Its beam tears through the ground, scorching everything it touches. Reynolds can only shriek Sasha's name, drowning in panic as the blast swallows the spot where she stood. Face to face with the oncoming wipeout, Sasha realizes, with a sinking heart, that this might be the end. From a cloud of settling smoke and dust, a battered figure steps out, standing over Sasha's crumpled form, Heist, but changed, bruised and broken, a dark flowing coat wrapping his silhouette and an eye patch hiding his right eye. Sasha looks up in total shock and whispers his name. He goes stone still, back turned to her, standing like a wall as the nightmare he just dodged hangs in the air. Around them, the land is nothing but scorched dirt and broken rock, proof of the blast he somehow swallowed before it could crush them. Sasha can only drop there and stare at the savior she never saw coming. He pulled Sasha into his arms as she slumped against him, her voice shaking with raw relief and rage, demanding answers. Why would he give up his life for her, and how could he think she ever asked him to protect her? Panting and beat up, he just shrugged it off. It's instinct, he said. From the ground where he lay broken, Reynolds stared at them and something clicked in his eyes. He finally understood their shared dream, becoming strong adventurers, while Sasha's hard stare melted into softness as she looked at Heist. He kept going, admitting that even though she still had a long road ahead, he understood one thing. She only wanted the best for him, and it was her, he swore, who pushed him to keep driving forward. Then his eyes snapped to the massive monster looming in the distance, and he told Sasha, "Leave the giant turtle to me," as the thing growled ominously. A memory slammed into Sasha's mind, back when she was still young, unable to bring herself to kill a single quivering slime, and Heist was right there, pushing her to just do it, just slash the. That encouraging smile, his promise that she could do it, hit her like lightning, and the shift from his old faith to this desperate plea to run lit a brutal fire inside her. She clenched her fist, thanked him, and swore she would fight. With a blinding flash, Sasha spun and slashed her sword, blasting a surge of energy that wiped out the entire goblin horde in seconds. Reynolds froze, staring in stunned disbelief, trying to grasp where that insane power came from. Her golden blade blazed brighter than ever, pulsing with raw power, and Sasha remembered Jaya Basin's words about awakening, about true time, where your buried strength finally breaks free. He'd seen she was being held back, and now with fire in her eyes, she swore Highbulk was protected. Rage surged at the sight. Then the colossal monster exploded forward with a deafening roar, slammed its massive head into the earth, tore the sky open with a heavenly Fong attack, and shattered the ground with a thunderclap that rocked everything. Its unstoppable surge crashed into a defiant roar. Then Sasha burst forward, transformed and blazing with power, swearing she'd be an unbreakable shield and a sword that can't be bent. Her thunderous cry ripped through the battlefield, cutting straight through the fog of Heist unconsciousness. That sudden sound hit him like a punch, his eyes flew open, and he realized he was sprawled in a bed with his face wrapped in bandages, blinking like, "Wait, am I at an inn?" A woman's voice nearby answered, confirming it. He was a guest of the inn, and he was a wait to boot. He snapped his head around. There was Priscilla, flashing him a bright good morning. He barely managed, whispering her name and asking how she'd even gotten there, and she just smiled and told him the fight was done and she'd already wrapped things up with first aid. Then she grinned, confident as ever. Her spiritual power was more than enough. His first worry wasn't for himself at all. When he forced himself up, he blurted out, frantic, "What happened to Sasha?" just as Piazzolla slipped into the room. His question hit the room, and for a split second, thick silence slammed down while the two elves traded nervous glances. Smashing the silence, Persia shot off for water, grabbed Piazzolla and bolted from the room, leaving Heist stuck there, staring into his dread as it kept swelling. Moments later, Piazzolla's voice rang from the window. She demanded to know how bad his injuries were, insisting the pain looked real but not life-threatening, and all he could offer was a low, quiet yes. Her voice then sank into something quieter and heavier, and she gave a raw, heartfelt apology that hit straight to the heart. She tried to hammer it home. Sasha had stepped into the chaos of her own will, no strings, no coercion. As she spoke, Sasha's awakened form flickered across Heist's mind, and Piazzolla insisted apologies weren't needed, but her voice died there, like the real result of the fight was too heavy to say out loud. He flashed a shaky smile at Prycia, and finally told her he'd reached the awakening point, then blurted, almost like a question, whether this meant he'd stop being a burden, only for Prycia to look anywhere but him, her face dark and her voice dropping his name. Her head snapped up, desperation blazing in her eyes. Then she straight up faced him and asked if he'd return to the sacred party one more time, fully aware of how big a request it was. Right before he could even speak, Piazzolla ripped the door open and thundered through the room. She blasted that Heist was hers and slammed the door on any chance of him leaving Prycia frozen in shocked silence. A sudden clash left Heist totally stunned, like his mind had frozen mid-thought. Priscilla, still shaking off her shock, declared that Heist was part of her sacred party. Then Piazzolla hit her with a razor-sharp, crackling glare. He wrestled with what was happening, because he'd always run solo, and their intense argument just totally flew right over his head. Piazzolla's smug challenge ignited the argument. She pressed Prycia on her relationship with Heist, grinning with total certainty, then flat-out claimed her and Heist would be lifelong companions, and Prycia's frustration just couldn't hide. A brutal crash of noise from outside sliced straight through their bickering, and with Heist still stuck in bed, he snapped his head toward the sound, bracing to figure out what kind of racket could be making all that noise. He hauled himself up, slid to the window, and leaned out to scout the scene. Then a quiet thought hit him. Maybe things weren't as hopeless as they felt. As the noise finally snapped into focus, Prycia and Piazzolla came into view below, yelling up for his decision, them or Sasha. Heist was done with it. Exasperation hit like a wave as he shouted back that he'd already made it clear he was a solo player. 6 months later, the city finally hit its stride again, streets roaring back to life with fresh energy everywhere. At the sacred Guild Hall, Sasha barrels in to greet a brand new party, 1,000, who stare up at her as their leader blurts out that they've finally arrived, and Sasha shoots back an apologetic smile like, sorry for all the trouble. She slams a fresh quest poster in front of them. This one's a C-rank commission, but the target is terrifying, an Orge Lord. The party's spiky-haired leader snaps back with a jolt of pure shock. Sasha tells them that 1,000 just got promoted to a C-rank party, so she wants a mission that'll actually test them. Then she asks, can you handle it? Lauren snaps his fist shut with pure resolve, swears they can, and asks her to trust them. That cocky confidence didn't last. Right in the force clearing, the party gets slammed, outnumbered and surrounded by 3 hulking orcs, and Lauren watches, panting, as she realizes the whole situation is about to spiral out of control. His party is busted, injured and scattered to the winds, and he clenches his teeth, forcing himself to keep fighting on borrowed time, but when that massive orage barrels toward him, dread hits like a truck. This is it. In that desperate moment, dark power erupts like a storm, vaporizing the charging monster and its crew in an instant, while the swirling energy fades and Heist stands completely untouched. Lauren just freezes, eyes wide, screaming his name in pure shock. He whips around to the battered adventurers, asks if everyone's okay, and clocks Sasha standing there. And then the whole crew of 1,000 barrels toward him, sobbing with relief and thanking him over and over for saving their lives. Relief hits them like a wave, and one of the party stares at the fallen orcs, dumbstruck as he says that for Heist to wipe out 3 of them in an instant, he has to be S-Ray. This hits Lauren like a jolt, and she practically bursts with excitement. She brings up the rumor that Heist is the strongest in the world because he's S-rank, then fires the question, would he actually tell them why he's got that kind of power? And you can bet her equally curious teammates are yelling, what's the reason? Right along with her. He calmly declares his ultimate mission, to conquer the 6 supreme dungeons, and the 1,000 party's members are left completely stunned, shouting the legendary name like they can't believe it's real. These 6 places are famous around the world as the nastiest dungeons that ever crawled into existence, starting with Pyloramon's Great Salt Lake, where Delmadrome hides a wild, deadly ecosystem, then the Earth Dragon's Labyrinth, and finally a ruined, sprawling cityscape that still feels haunted. The other fabled places are wild too. The disorienting Forest of Confusion, the Tower of the 7 Sages, Grenobstar, a name that's shown up in history just once, the demon-haunted mountains of Necrophantasia, and the mythical Garden of God, a place talked about only in legends. He tells the party that out of all these locations, only 2 have truly been found, the Great Salt Lake in the Frizz region and a dungeon hidden in the Desir Desert, then drops a terrifying warning. Nobody who's ever gone into either one has come back, and since he's got no official backing from any high command, he's left wondering which death trap to hit first. As he talks, the members of Thousand Gaze stare back with wide-eyed awe, like he's something special, and he catches the one problem. He can't say yet that he's working on a commission, so he decides to just play it cool and introduce himself as a fellow adventurer for now. His burning ambition lights a fire in everyone, and Lauren and Tenna can't hold back. They rush to ask if they can tag along, whispering sorry they'll slow him down, but begging for more of his stories. The whole group rallies, desperate to be allowed on his journey. Right as he's about to answer, the world flips to a massive throne room, massive doors crash open, and King Barbaros greets Heiss. Heiss drops to one knee, choking out an apology for being late, while the 1,000 from the party stares in total shock at the banquet table. King Barbaros cuts through all the niceties and tells him they're done wasting time. He's getting straight to the point. The king bangs out a royal decree and demands that Heist conquer one of the 6 supreme dungeons, Delmadrome, right in the Desire region, and that command hits Heist like a bolt of lightning, leaving him stunned for a moment. His mind is spinning with the consequences, and he can't believe he's forced to dive into another one of the supreme dungeons this soon. Sensing the king's hesitation, he lays it out. After Heist tore through the Stampede incident with that legendary performance, he's sure Heist can take on Delmadrone. He stood before King Barbaros, and the king leaned in close, asking straight up, would he take the challenge? Without a second thought, he dropped to one knee, slamming his armored fist onto the floor, ready to obey the order with it. Once the command landed, the king snapped his eyes to a huge carved stone tablet and ordered Heist to hunt down the Desire Adventurers Guild for exact dungeon details. Then he threw in one more name, Balgon, the man who surely knew everything. The king kept talking, saying he'd already drafted a letter of introduction and was praying for good news, and then his advisor, Bonnet, strode forward with it. Heiss took it, nodding like, got it. His business wrapped up, and the Heist boss spun on his heels, storming out of the throne room. The massive, rust-choked Cully's gate slammed shut behind him, trapping him on the other side with a brand new mission. Just as he stepped outside, Pietzola and Sasha were right there. Pietzola burst in with a bright flourish, saying she'd heard he was getting ready to head to Desire to hunt down a great dungeon, and Sasha just stared at him, grinning like it was totally, utterly him. He marched right past them, barked that they'd better not tail him again, because he knew that place was a death trap, and he was determined to go in alone. She shouted at him to calm down, and with a confident grin, Pietzola swore she wasn't going with it. She surged forward and gently took his arm, telling him straight that even though she'd just climbed ranks, her current power would only slow him down. So she pinned him with a fierce look and urged him to go on ahead. With one quick release of his arm, Pietzola dropped another bombshell. She'd heard Sasha's party was getting ready to take on the ultimate dungeon too, Pyloramans. As Heist bursts out through the city gates, Pietzola yells his name and slams the brakes on him. He snaps around just as she offers her thanks. He looks completely stunned by her gratitude, and then, with a bright grin, she begs him to tell her everything about his journey when he gets back. After a brief pause, he quietly nods, agreeing. Her face softens as she says he can spill his stories to her while they sip tea together. With farewells traded, the two adventurers step into the unknown and swear to each other they're heading for a safe road. Their journey finally spits them out in the roaring desert kingdom of Pizia, a city packed tight against an unshakable wall of mountains. So they waste no time and rush straight to the local adventurers guild. Inside, Pietzola marches up with a letter from the king of Highbelk and hands it to a guild official, saying they're here to meet Balgon and get his crew to confirm the letter is real. As she takes care of the formalities, Heist stands there, knuckles white, gripping his gauntlet like it might bite back. He replays the letter in his head, especially that bestride disaster, and counts every weapon he's bagged since, convinced that if everything runs smooth, fear has no place left to hide. Before Heist can even finish a thought, a giant, bearded brute crashes into his space, looming over him like a wall. The man's voice rumbles, asking if Heist is the one plotting to conquer Delmadrone. Heist jolts and looks up, stammering, "You're bald gone." The bearded man confirms it. Ice blurts out that the king hired him to crush the dungeon, and he needs intel. Then Balgon immediately snaps, roaring that Ice has nothing to do with him, so get lost. Ice fumes and demands why he should trust some brat. Then Balgon doubles down and screams for him to keep upstairs, not stepping foot in his place. Balgon keeps roaring, sneering that King Barbaros would dare send an S-rank appraiser from the Beast Riot to poke around Delmadrome, until his fury spikes and Pietzola steps up with a calm, placid smile, telling him to rein it in. Her peaceful offer got instantly wrecked as a sudden Heist burst the room with mocking laughter, and he sneered at the Four Great Clans title, dismissing it like music itself was nothing. Then he stared the big man right in the face and ordered him to listen up. Those sharp, wild grin words cut deep. Hisicus Balgana wasn't some legend at all, just an old man bolting in fear from an unknown enemy. So Pietzola went pale, terrified, and demanded to know what the hell he was doing. The young adventurer kept hammering his words, sneering that Balgon, and everyone like him were nothing but pathetic cowards. With the tirade finally over, he snapped on his dark visor, spun away from the raging man, and calmly told the shopkeeper to follow his own advice, then head home. As he stormed off, Piazzola's face collapsed into pure despair, because she finally realized that a peaceful ending was completely out of reach. Before she could even blink, Bal roared, hurling insults at Heist like, "You little brat." Then Heist shot off the balcony in a blur, right as a thunderous explosion ripped through the building behind him, smashing the whole structure as he crashed down. With a guttural grunt, the Heist twist launches through the air, barely slipping out of the way as a crushing blow slams down and shatters the stone under him. The big bearded man, ball stolen from his grip, just smirks, clearly shocked and impressed the kid pulled off that dodge. He doesn't let the boy breathe. He hauls that massive weapon up high. "Go on, dodge this," he snarls, and with a thunderous roar the ball launches, then the hammer slams down like it wants to split the world. The instant the weapon slams in, the ground explodes. Then the Heist kid vaults over Balgan's head, riding the attack's momentum like a launch pad, and from down below Balgan flashes a grin, clearly impressed by the boy's serious skill. He touches down just a short distance away, then whips his head back, seeing the sheer wreckage and feeling a bead of sweat roll down his temple, because that old man's power is way stronger than he ever expected. The shockwave keeps blasting outward, smashing up dust and rock into the air until the area around the two fighters becomes a roaring haze. The ball is gone, and suddenly this weapon Heist drops out of nowhere, leaving him stunned. He fires back, demanding to know if he's really going to stop. Then, with a razor grin, the Heister flashes the firearm and unleashes a brutal burst of rapid shots. With a jolt of shock, the bullets clanged off Balgan's gauntlets like they were hitting stone, and the blacksmith didn't flinch at all. Then, right when those stares realized their strike was pointless, Balgan casually let a tiny round sphere drop from his hand. His opponent erupts in a booming laugh. "Gotcha." And he can't stop grinning because it's just hilarious to watch someone swing a Navanaga weapon, the name dropping into the moment like it's straight up unfamiliar to any Heist he's ever seen. That word yanks a memory to the surface. He spots Ibis, her long hair whipping in the air, and when she meets his eyes, she stares back with curiosity, asking him straight up if he's her lover. A loud thump of the back, right after the ball flew away, snapped him back to reality, and the blacksmith leaned in with a huge grin. "So you've heard about Nabinaga, huh?" he asked, clocking that the boy clearly knew at least a bit. He slammed his hand onto Heis's shoulder with a loud thud, laughing hard as he finally snagged the young man's name from his memory, and when the blacksmith confirmed it, Heis just stared like Heis. Right. With the names finally locked in, he spun around and motioned for Heis to trail him. Then he grinned and promised a story, waving him over to come sit down. As he strode along, the young man's face twisted with sudden disgust. What in the world was the blacksmith thinking, smashing him with that kind of force? Just as his thoughts started to spin, they stepped into what looked like a guild hall. Then the blacksmith pointed at the table again and demanded he take a seat. Moments later, thick liquid thundered into wooden mugs with a loud, wild slosh, filling the whole air. Balgon slid a mug in front of Heis and kicked off a story that hit like thunder. He confessed he used to run around with Nabinaga, and Heis couldn't hide his shock. Then the blacksmith kept going, saying their crew also had Ibis of the Elves and the rest of the clan masters. He told me that at the start, they were all locked together as one team, charging into battle under a single banner. He gave a warm chuckle, eyes lighting up at the memory of Ibis. Back when she followed Nabinaga everywhere, full of happy excitement, back then still moving like she hadn't learned that fierce, confident authority she carries now. His laughter died down, and a heavy, somber look took over. He explained that Nabinaga wasn't just some leader, he was a true friend, a battle-ready comrade by his side. Then he locks eyes on Heist, voice dropping to a grave whisper, and demands to know why Heist would hate someone so hard for using a weapon that's identical to the one his beloved friend carried. He stares, stunned, as Balgon blurts out that he's not stopping him out of spite. Then he jabs a thumb toward a huge, reinforced bucket and makes it clear that's why he stepped in. Balgon presses on, revealing a huge corpse-bale monstrous hide, and telling you this is exactly what he dragged out of this place. Then he bears his horror story, a dungeon nothing like the outside world, where every one of his comrades was slaughtered, leaving scars that never, ever fade. With a grim memory ripped open and laid bare, Bald Gon asks Heist what he intends to do. Then the young man stays stone-cold silent, face hardened like it's carved from steel. He doesn't even wait for my response. He's been at this too long to stop now. Then he blurts that 2 more young fighters have already climbed to the top, and Ibis, refusing to be left behind after the beast Ampede, is raring to take on another massive dungeon. That reminder of his rivals sparks a blazing fury in Heis. He steps up and declares, with zero doubt, that he's going to do it, vowing to become the strongest of them all. Bal went up in hearty laughter at his bold declaration, calling him a fool for ignoring every warning he'd been given. Balgan's booming laughter dies out, and seriousness snaps onto his face. Then he nods at the boy's stubborn resolve and steps in, ready to share everything he knows about the Delmadrome dungeon. He drags the boy inside and tells him, from the outside, the Delmadrome just looks like busted old ruins, but its monsters are monsters of a different league. He snaps that the calm, harmless vibe is nothing but a trick, and that anyone who strolls in thinking it's just a normal dungeon won't get crushed by the enemy, they'll get killed by their own assumptions. Then he tears open a massive scroll. Unroll the scroll, and there it is, a crisp map packed with details. Balgon leans in and hammers the point. Even if Heist slips inside, he's got to realize this dungeon plays by its own rules, because it's crawling with bizarre things called iron boxes. The boy leans in, squinting at the map and demanding, "Those iron boxes." Balgon nods, and then drops the key detail. When he showed it to Nabinaga, his old comrade immediately said they looked just like stuff from his own world. He latched onto the craftsman's words, and his mind instantly painted those weird iron boxes, plus modern firearms and vehicles, looking disturbingly like the gear he'd summoned himself. Why they'd shown up inside the dungeon still didn't make sense, but one thing burned in his certainty. There was a bigger link waiting to be revealed. He snapped his focus back to Balgon and asked, "Did Nabinaga have zero clue too?" Balgon nodded. His partner was just as clueless with that, Balgon snapped that he'd given everything he had. Then Heist's gaze descended and slammed down on his weapon master, Grimoire. In that moment he knew, if he could smash this dungeon and the rest of them too, he'd finally awaken more of his hidden power, and maybe uncover the truth behind those weird artifacts tied to the world. As the heist took shape in his mind, Balgon clenched his hand into a brutal fist. The craftsman slumped in shame, admitting new information had shattered the plan, and that his fallen comrades' lives might have been thrown away for nothing. Heist froze, staring in shock at Balgon's sudden, raw rage. He stared at the map, and finally felt the weight of Balgon's past crushing his chest. Because that man had gambled it all, just to tear his way out alive, and Heist swore then that the sacrifice of Balgon's comrades would never be wasted. With everything clicking into place, he squared up to the craftsman. "Balgon," he said, then blurted out he was sorry for calling him a coward, admitting he'd been immature too. Balgon just stared, stunned by the sudden apology. The big guy shot out a rough, low grunt, just enough to say, "Yeah, I got it." Then he told Heist to drop it, pointing out that at least the kid hadn't tried to act like some hardened veteran from day one. Then Heist stepped back and offered a sincere, heartfelt thank you. He started to head out, but Heist shot a confident grin over his shoulder and swore he'd crush the great dungeon. Then Balgon's voice cut through the air, demanding he wait. Right when he tried to speak, the massive workshop door slammed open, and a visitor's voice cut in to announce they'd finally arrived. Just as Heist and Balgon started talking, the door slammed open, and the moment it did, Heist snapped around, his face hardening at the sight of the unexpected visitor. Before he even fully clocks who it is, a figure streaks by in a blur, darting deeper into the workshop. The newcomer halts right in front of Orgon. The big craftsman looks up from his work, totally unbothered. "So you've arrived," he says coolly, while the others hover in the back, staring at the intrusions like they can't quite figure out what's happening. She stands tall with hands on her hips, pointed ears twitching, and fires off. "So this is the last S-rank adventure." Then she presses, "And your name's Hijiri, right?" Before anyone can blink, Heist snaps from behind, "Who are you?" And she grins right back, "That's right." She whips around in a blink, slamming into Heist's personal space so fast it's unreal, then leans in close and barks, "Yo, Heist, aren't you?" She circles him, eyeing every inch with a razor-sharp stare, then stops and goes, "Well, you're pretty strong," even as she stiffens her posture and tries to wrap her head around what's happening. Balgon slams into the tense moment and thrusts a letter into view, telling Heist that Barbaros mentioned a new S-rank adventure is about to roll in for their expedition, leaving a stunned Heist demanding why nobody warned him. The truth finally hits and Heist's face twists in pure shock. "So that's what this is about." Then he explodes into a yell. Right beside him, Hijiri just smirks with his eyes shut and flashes a peace sign. He whips around to Balgon, panicking and swearing he knows nothing about any partner. Yet Balgon stays cool and says, "Assigned or not, this mission is theirs as a pair." Beads of sweat run down his face as the Heist guy snaps a glance back at the girl, scrambling for an answer. Are they really expecting him to go along with this plan? Hijiri scowls instantly, saying she won't team up with someone who has a hidden past. And all Heist can do is shoot out a shaky apology. A nasty doubt won't let go, but the energetic elf rockets her adventurer's card forward, rank blazing clear, and declares, right to their face, that she's a real, proper adventurer. Her proof hits him like a brick. He just stands there, eyes wide, still trying to wrap his head around it as he blurts out disbelief over her S-rank status, and Balgon cuts in, telling him to stop fighting it and face the truth. He jerks his gaze up as the elf grins and holds out her hand, calling herself Hijiri, and at last, Heist snaps out of his shock and formally introduces himself back. A spirited young woman named Hijiri grins at Heist and begs him to take care of her. Then she leans in, starts bragging, and asks if he's ever heard of the infamous Hijiri Cursed Fist, even dropping the name in Yulong language, while the heavily bearded Balgon watches them like he's studying their every move. His face turns grim as he bluntly tells her, Zai and Oolong are both doomed to die. The words slam into Hijiri, freezing her mid-breath, and then he presses for where Oolong is, remembering it as a brutal western land where martial arts never stop and war never ends. She snaps her courage back into place, chest puffed out, and loudly declares that Oolong is her treasured homeland. So when he voices that grim premonition, she brushes it off and insists they'll make up after they clear the dungeon together, then steps in closer and makes him flinch back. He jerks back, all jittery and furious, demanding answers on how this could even happen, and swearing they have to smash through it together. But Hijiri just stares, completely baffled by his intense refusal. Meanwhile, inside the royal court, King Barbaros slams down a shocking declaration. He announces that he's personally stepping into the adventurer heists to help conquer the Great Delmadrome dungeon as a. When the courtier throws out doubts, the king demands a real answer, then asks if this is the same heist tied to the infamous bee stampede incident. The name hits Hijiri like a shockwave, and her eyes snap wide with sudden recognition. She snaps around to face the king, and with perfect formal poise, begs for his approval to join Heist's expedition, arguing that the chaos brought on by top-tier adventurers has been wrecking the war effort, and this is their shot to set it right. She heard the furious shouts rise in protest, realizing just how much trouble she could unleash, but it's already too late. Hijiri is sprinting off, shouting back that she'll obey the royal order, and putting it all on him to keep. Left behind, he snaps into the moment and squares up face-to-face with King Barbaros. The king leans in, eyes burning, and asks Heist, low and deadly, whether he has ever been wrong about a person, like there's no escape from the answer. A heavy hand slams onto his shoulder, and the king's voice booms on. Heist has caught his attention. Then the king starts gearing up to lay out his demand, and the poor young adventurer freezes, trapped in a corner. Right away, Hijiri barreled up and jammed her flag on top of the little mound, then declared she'd become the strongest by crushing every powerful enemy in the great dungeon, and she didn't stop there. She challenged him to a duel with. Her eyes blaze with wild, manic intensity as she drives in close, demanding to know if he's really as strong as she thinks, while his face stays grim and locked down, impossible to read. He whips his back to her and shuts the whole challenge down, reminding her, right to her face, that he's already said he works alone, so there's nothing left to talk about. As Hijiri turns to leave, the massive bearded gatekeeper flashes him a warm smile and thanks him for the visit, but Hijiri just can't let it go. He yells from behind for the gatekeeper to wait. The gatekeeper stares as the two of them head out, silently praying the road treats them kindly. Later in a roaring tavern, High slams a big order onto the table, 2 drinks, a massive super steak, and a wild pasta combo packed with wild boar, squid ink, and a punchy sour sauce. The waitress quickly scribbles his orders as he adds crispy fried fish to the list. Then he snaps his attention toward Hijiri, who's trailed right after him, and demands, with sharp annoyance, how much longer she plans to shadow him. She answers on the spot, swearing she'll stick with him until they crush that giant dungeon. Then he finally gives in and agrees to fight her. But when he glances aside, he realizes her talk is just a sneaky excuse to dodge the real battle. She doubles down on her resolve as she practically beams and declares she's staying by his side. Then she throws out a plan to storm the dungeon together, and after that, they finally settle things with their duel. She lights up, convinced she's cracked a brilliant solution, while Heist slumps forward, crushed under the weight of her unstoppable energy. Right then, a waitress rushes back, apologizing for the delay. Ahead of them, a feast was laid out. Right in the middle sat a huge, steaming dish that soaked the air in mouth-watering aroma, and Hijiri burst into pure delight, practically shouting that everything looked insanely delicious. Without wasting a second, she heaved that heavy wooden mug up, sent ale flying everywhere, and smiled so hard it looked like her cheeks might tear. Then she raised her shout to toast the birth of their brand new party, roaring the Heist name with pure, unstoppable hype. Her loud, excited cheer met a dull, lifeless sip from Heist, and his face said it all, utterly unimpressed, like he was ready to shut her down with one weary, bored "oh really." He lowered his mug and said, straight-faced, that he didn't remember any party getting planned, and before he could back out, Hijiri pushed him to at least take a drink with her. She ignored his protest completely, took a big bite, and hummed with satisfaction. This amazing meal was sending her straight into can't-wait mode for what came next. Then her mind snapped straight to the mission, the Delmadrome Great Dungeon. She said it was the top-ranked, S-class monster of a place, its name hanging over that empty, ruined stretch of land like a warning you couldn't ignore. At the mention of the dungeon's rank, his face went cold, steel in his eyes, then he shot back, harsh and certain. S-class or not, death slips in there like it's nothing. Hijiri nodded like she already knew what was coming, and when she said she was an S-class adventurer herself, you could feel it. She wasn't just warning them, she was admitting they'd be walking straight into life-or-death danger. Her bright smile evaporated in an instant, and a steel-hard resolve took its place, eyes snapping wide as she told everyone she had to get herself ready, mentally, for what came next. She leaned in close, her voice going low but burning just as bright, because she had zero plans to die here, and she told the terrified Heist that she couldn't possibly fall until she took him down. She clenches his collar and grins, half glee, half fear. A stubborn fire burns behind her eyes, and she snaps that she's already laid out her plan. She'll beat everyone, grow stronger, and one day crown herself the most powerful person in the world. Heist, reeling from her intensity, can only stammer out questions. Why is she so locked on this path? Her words yank him straight back to the days when his power was undeniable. Back when, during the Beast Riot, he turned legendary in Oolong, wiping out 1,000 demons, and then tearing the entire demon race out by the roots. Even after all those insane wins, a soft thought slips into his head. Somehow, the weight of that power feels weirdly light. Back in the tavern, he's stuck in his head while Hijiri gulps from her mug and grumbles that he won't even consider a competition, because he's always believed every adventurer shares the same dream, to become the strongest of them all. She drops her gaze, tiredness flickering in her eyes, and admits, quietly but clearly, that she can't stand competitions like this. Her sudden confession totally knocks him off balance, and when he meets her eyes, he blurts out, "What do you mean?" before demanding her real goal as an adventurer. That one question yanks him straight into a tidal wave of memories. Sasha and his hardened dream of building a party together finally came true, but the bigger they got, the wider the gap grew between their strengths, and then it hits him again, clear as day. Sasha's scream, blaming him for pulling everyone down. He clings to a different memory, her smile, her push, telling him to engrave his own strength into his heart and chase the title of the strongest. But that hope gets shattered the moment he sees her turn her back and walk away, leaving him stranded, and the contrast hits him so hard he can't hide how shaken he is. Hijiri cuts right through his turmoil, leaning in with real curiosity, and tells him any reason works. She just can't wait to hear his story, so she pushes him to spill even a little. Her simple request, but it hits like a truck. Tears slam down her face as she chokes on breaths for water, wrecked by a story he hasn't even finished telling, while the Heist just stares, completely stunned by her over-the-top reaction. He snaps out of it, shuts down the heavy conversation before it can crush the moment, because the vibe is already dead. Instead, they plunge into the roaring town square, where the air buzzes with trade and crowds dart between stacked market stalls. While the crowd buzzes around them, Heist spots the signs. They're closing in on the Delmadrome dungeon, and the whole place feels nothing like a normal tourist strip. Hijiri can barely contain himself, eyes locked on a food stall as he boasts about bargain beef tongue skewers. The vendor slaps their order together and hands it over. She whips around and tells him straight up that this tourist trap was built right over ancient ruins, and then she cuts in that she's got work to do here too. He blurts out, "What do you mean by that?" And as the words leave his mouth, it hits Hijiri like a lightning strike. From right where they stand, they can march straight to the dungeon. Her idea ignites a fierce competitive blaze. She smirks and dares him to race, shouting that whoever reaches the dungeon first gets to be the leader, while Heist can only stare, shocked by how wildly childish her energy suddenly is. Just moments later, they roll up. Right in front of them looms a massive arched gateway, carved straight into the mountain, its pitch-black entrance leaking ancient power. Adri freezes in awe, but Heist narrows his eyes and locks in grim certainty. This is the Delmadrome dungeon.